Chapter 952. Qin Wendian, Qinge, and Nam Huang Yunxi all retracted their auras and didn't chase after Emosia. It wasn't so easy to kill a character like Emosia. Defeating and killing were two completely different concepts. In addition, Emosia definitely had the will of an ancient emperor as well as a tyrannical divine weapon on him. Right now, Emosia had been chased away, and Qin Wendian had even snatched away Emosia's inheritance. This was already enough for now. The crowd inclined their heads and stared at this space. The runic light in the air had already dimmed, and the lifelike carvings had vanished as well. It was as though everything had already been obtained by Qin Wendian. They no longer had a chance to obtain the inheritance. They had no chance to obtain the inheritance of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor. Now they had lost their chance again. Xian Yang and Shaolin Yue felt the most hatred. They could only watch helplessly as Qin Wendian snatched the inheritance away. Even if the inheritance was snatched away by Emosia, they would still feel better in their hearts. What did you obtain? Shaolin Yue coldly stared at Qin Wendian as she asked. Qin Wendian turned his gaze over, staring at Shaolin Yue. Does this have anything to do with you? The three of you had to join forces to defeat Emosia. It was an unfair victory. There's nothing to be proud of. If not, how could this inheritance belong to you? Even if you really snatched it away, you would surely die in Emosia's hands. Shaolin Yue coldly spoke. Since the three of you joined forces, and now that the inheritance is in your hands, there are so many geniuses from the city of ancient emperors here. Why can't I make you stay behind? You are truly despicable to think that you still have the face to say such words. Before Qin Wendian could reply, Jun Mingchen already stared at Shaolin Yue. Back then, my senior brother Qin single-handedly jumped levels and defeated you. How shameless! Shaolin Yue's countenance turned extremely unsightly when she heard Jun Mingchen's words. Qin Wendian similarly stared at her with disdain. Lifting his foot, boundless runic light circulated around him as a fearsome aura gushed forth from him. He didn't say anything, he merely walked towards Shaolin Yue. You said that you want to snatch the inheritance from me? Staring at Qin Wendian walking closer and closer, Shaolin Yue actually felt an immense pressure bearing down on her. There seemed to be a fearsome power within his body, his aura surging. Only when the pressure bore down on her would one know how strong it was. Even before Qin Wendian neared her, Shaolin Yue could already feel a supreme pressure bearing down on every part of her body. It was as though just by standing there, Qin Wendian already possessed an incomparably terrifying pressure. Qin Wendian's physique. Power? Qin Wendian? Qin Wendian asked. Someone silently sighed in his heart. The pressure on Shaolin Yue grew greater and greater. Compared to the time they met Qin Wendian back then, the pressure on her was many times greater. Why aren't you speaking? Qin Wendian's god's hand shone with a dazzling light, its might shocking the heavens. Shaolin Yue turned ashen. There are so many of us here. Do you think we are afraid of the three of you? Boom. Qin Wendian's god's hand directly blasted out. A gigantic palm imprint filled the air. Shaolin Yue's countenance turned ashen, an incomparably terrifying frost energy gushed forth from her. When her palm blasted out, the space around her froze as it collided with Qin Wendian's god's hand. Bang bang bang. The terrifying frost energy was directly shattered, transforming into dust. That destructive palm imprint blotted out the skies, its might shaking the heavens, sweeping through everything. Shaolin Yue retreated, both her palms blasted out with her frozen extermination calamity finger, wanting to freeze the gigantic palm imprint. However, it seemed to be useless. The power contained within the palm imprint was too overwhelming, sweeping through everything, directly blasting towards Shaolin Yue. She mustered all her strength to defend but was still flung through the air, slamming heavily into a wall. She groaned in agony as her countenance turned even paler. Just you? Are you even qualified to snatch the inheritance? Qin Wendian mocked. His gaze swept over the people in the surroundings, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. It was as though he was threatening them, telling them that if they wanted to join forces against him, they would definitely make them pay a price. Qin Wendian's gaze truly had a great deterrent force. This was especially so in addition to his Qing'e and Namhuang Yunxi's strength. Nobody dared to act recklessly. Emosye alone was already sufficient to intimidate the crowd. Yet these three actually managed to force Emosye into retreat. Not only that, none of them were stronger than Xiaolingyue. Nobody had the confidence to snatch the inheritance, let alone Emosye. Let's go. Qin Wendian turned and spoke to Qing'e and the others. After that, the group of them departed, moving towards the exit of this space. Very swiftly, they left the cavern. Before them, at the location where the inheritance of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor was located, the terrifying gray light was still as bright as ever. Back then, these two supreme existences battled here and the Brahma Heavenly Emperor vanished. The inheritances left behind by these two supreme existences were finally obtained by someone else. The 9 inheritances left behind by the Brahma Heavenly Emperor would surely cause a storm of blood once again. Did you really obtain the inheritance of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor? Namhuang Yunxi asked Qin Wenyan. You can say that. However, this Brahma Heavenly Emperor was different from the Brahma Heavenly Emperor. He didn't leave behind his cultivation arts. He only hoped that the inheritor would be able to forge a supreme physique before passing on the inheritance to establish an immortal foundation. From then on, the inheritor would be able to soar freely in the heavens. His inheritor should naturally have their own path of cultivation and not follow the same path as the Brahma Heavenly Emperor. Qin Wenyan completely understood the actions of that supreme existence. Before this, he could clearly sense how difficult the path of cultivation of that supreme existence was. There was helplessness, there was despair. This was something no stellar martial cultivator could avoid. For those who wanted to become a supreme existence, they had to experience all of this. That supreme existence was willing to forge the most perfect foundation for his inheritor. As for the future, that would have to depend on the inheritor himself to fight for it. The art to establish an immortal foundation? Namhuang Yunxi's eyes flashed as she asked. Yes, the art to shatter an immortal foundation. What this senior established back then was a saint-grade immortal foundation. Qin Wendian replied. Saint-grade immortal foundation. Namhuang Yunxi's beautiful eyes narrowed as she continued. In the cultivation of the immortal realms, immortal foundations can be divided into 6 tiers and 3 grades. The first tier to third tier are considered mortal grade. First tier immortal foundation is the weakest, second tier immortal foundation is second, and third tier immortal foundation can already be considered not bad. Those who can have some accomplishments in the immortal realms, establishing a third tier immortal foundation is the most common. As for the fourth tier and fifth tier immortal foundation, those who can establish a fourth tier immortal foundation would have an extremely high chance of becoming an immortal king or even an immortal emperor. Right now, the vast majority of immortal kings in our immortal realms have already established a fourth tier immortal foundation. As for those who established a fifth tier immortal foundation, from what I know, only the immortal emperors at the very peak of the immortal realms have established a fifth tier immortal foundation. Namhuang Yunxi's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wenyan, as a faint trace of envy could be seen in her eyes. He actually obtained the art to establish an immortal foundation. Although this wasn't an innate technique and couldn't directly raise one's strength, immortal foundation was the foundation of immortal foundation for immortals. The first tier of immortals was known as immortal foundation. If one could establish the most perfect immortal foundation, it would be extremely beneficial to their future cultivation. So powerful? Qin Wenyan was somewhat taken aback. After that, he smiled, as expected of an inheritance left behind by a supreme character. The earlier body establishing technique was actually a foundation for establishing an immortal foundation. Since it's so powerful, I shall impart it to you as well. In that case, you might be able to establish an even more powerful immortal foundation. Namhuang Yunxi's beautiful eyes instantly froze. She stared at the smile on Qin Wendian's face in a daze. For a moment, she didn't know if Qin Wendian was speaking the truth or not. That cold and arrogant countenance of hers actually had a dumbfounded expression on it as she asked, "Really? Why would I lie to you?" Qin Wendian shrugged. Upon seeing the look in Qin Wentian's eyes, Nam Huang Yunxi was still in a daze. The art to establish a saint-grade immortal foundation, Qin Wenin was actually willing to impart it to her so easily? But Nam Huang Yunxi asked. This. Qin Wentian stared at Nam Huang Yunxi. This beauty was somewhat stubborn. They were originally allies and fought side by side before this. If it wasn't for Nam Huang Yunxi, he and Qing'e would have a hard time dealing with Emosia. Wasn't it only right for him to impart the art to her? Because you are beautiful. Qin Wenin laughed as he teased, his words causing Nam Huang Yunxi's beautiful eyes to blink. However, Qin Wentian soon regretted his words. He could sense a cold gaze directed at him from the side. But when he turned his gaze over, Qing'e continued staring ahead. Her cold countenance made it impossible to tell what she was thinking in her heart. Qing'e. Qin Wentian walked up and pulled Qing'e's hand. Qing'e struggled free, yet Qin Wentian wasn't willing to let her go. He continued holding onto Qing'e's hand tightly as he laughed. Qing'e is naturally the most beautiful. Nam Huang Yunxi, who was at the side, instantly had black lines on her face. The good impression she had of Qin Wentian earlier had completely vanished. She was silently musing in her heart, what a shameless fellow. However, all of you have to remember this. The requirement for the immortal foundation shattering art is extremely high. After I impart it to you, if your physiques are not strong enough, you must never attempt to shatter your immortal foundation. Qin Wentian suddenly spoke in a solemn tone. Nam Huang Yunxi knew that Qin Wentian was reminding them. She nodded her head seriously. This was also the reason why this ancient emperor wanted to establish a physique for his successor. My physique should be sufficient. Jun Mingchen confidently spoke. But even if you can shatter your immortal foundation, you might not be able to establish a better immortal foundation. Everything still depends on the individual. Qin Wentian spoke again. There was no cultivation art that was omnipotent. Should we go out first or wait for Little Rascal to come out? Qing'e asked Qin Wentian. Let's go out first. Little Rascal is extremely intelligent. Nothing will happen to him. That mysterious senior seemed to have opened up a path after leaving the underworld mountains. Qin Wentian stared ahead. With the geniuses from the city of ancient emperors coming and going, the underworld mountains were no longer a forbidden ground. However, the 9 inheritances of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor were no longer here. Qing'e nodded. After which, the group of them soared into the air, flying towards the exit. In the city of ancient emperors, the news of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor circulated through the entire city. Another supreme ancient emperor had also left behind his inheritances in the underworld mountains, causing countless people to sigh in admiration. But now, all these inheritances had been snatched away. Those who snatched away the inheritances were Zi Daoyang, Mo Xie, Qin Wentian, Zhan Pering, as well as Qin Wentian's demonic beast companion. Qin Wentian's name once again shook the entire city of ancient emperors. And in the newest Immortal Ascension rankings, there was a shocking change in the top 10 rankings. Qin Wentian's name had actually replaced Xian Yang, who was ranked number 4. As for Xian Yang, not only did he drop from number 4, his name wasn't even in the number 5 position anymore. Qing'e was still in the number 5 position, while Xian Yang was ranked number 6. Qin Wentian, from a nameless nobody, had obtained the god's hand and snatched away the inheritances from Mo Xie. He directly leaped across the Immortal Ascension rankings and was now ranked number 4. Chapter 953. Half a year unknowingly flowed by. During this half a year, the underworld mountain in the city of ancient emperors became a place frequented by geniuses. However, there were very few discoveries. After the inheritances were taken away by the geniuses who had entered, there were no other good fortune to be had. Occasionally, there would be some who didn't believe it and even went to the extent of angering the ancient emperor in the coffin. Zi Daoyang, Zhan Peng, and Little Rascal were still cultivating there, searching for the inheritances. The famous Mo Xie had vanished without a trace. Some guessed that he was trying to break through to Immortal Foundation, while others guessed that he was consolidating his foundation. Back then, when Emosya was defeated by Qin Wenyan and the other two, he was definitely unwilling to accept it. Hence, there was a high possibility that he was consolidating his foundation and preparing to make a comeback. As for Qin Wenyan, he was undoubtedly the most popular topic of discussion among the geniuses in the City of Ancient Emperors. He was one of the most legendary characters in the City of Ancient Emperors in recent years. He, Zi Daoyang, and Emosya were known as the three geniuses of the City of Ancient Emperors. Even Nam Huang Yunshi wasn't ranked in the top three. It wasn't that Nam Huang Yunshi was weak, it was just that Nam Huang Yunshi didn't have any advantage against Zi Daoyang or Emosya. However, Qin Wenyan was different. When he was at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon, he could already fight against Emosya with much difficulty. Once he broke through to the 9th level, he would instantly be able to threaten Zi Daoyang and Emosya. Hence, the City of Ancient Emperors viewed the three of them as equals. The Qin sect was naturally also a major power in the City of Ancient Emperors. This sect had Qin Wenyan, Qing, and Nam Huang Yunshi. They occupied the 3rd, 4th, and 5th positions in the Immortal Ascension rankings. 3 months ago, when the Qin sect announced their recruitment to the City of Ancient Emperors, the entire City of Ancient Emperors was in an uproar. Many geniuses happily headed over. Not only did the Qin sect have a legendary character like Qin Wenyan, there were also two supreme beauties. In addition to the fact that Qin Wenyan cultivated God's hand, as well as the fact that he obtained Emosya's inheritance, many geniuses wanted to join the Qin sect. However, the Qin sect's vetting process was extremely strict. They wouldn't casually recruit new disciples. Anyone with ulterior motives would be kicked out. Only the true elites, as well as those with strong willpower and determination, would have the opportunity to enter the Qin sect. As a result, in 3 months, the Qin sect had only managed to recruit around 50 people. Compared to the Twin Stars Alliance, they were still far inferior. In fact, among these disciples, there were quite a few at the 7th level and 8th level of celestial phenomenon. They didn't seem to place much importance on their cultivation bases. After all, Hua Taishu, Jun Mingchen, and Zi Qingxian were the ones who passed the test. Right now, their cultivation bases were only at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon. Right now, the prestige of the Qin sect in the City of Ancient Emperors had already surpassed that of the publicly acknowledged number 1 power in the City of Ancient Emperors, the Violet sect. The Violet sect was established by Zi Daoyang, and had always been known as the number 1 power in the City of Ancient Emperors. Not long ago, when the Twin Stars Alliance merged with the Shao sect, there were people who claimed that the newly formed Twin Stars Alliance could threaten the position of the Violet sect. But now, it seemed that the Qin sect was the one that truly had the qualifications to threaten the position of the Violet sect. Since the 3 leaders of the Qin sect could defeat Emosya, it was also possible that they could defeat Zi Daoyang as well. Zhao Exen was one of the newly recruited disciples of the Qin sect. Her talent wasn't that outstanding and her cultivation base wasn't high either. She was only at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, and by right, she shouldn't have been able to join the Qin sect. But because of her straightforward personality, when Jun Mingchen asked her why she wanted to join the Qin sect, Zhao Exen actually told him that she liked Qin Wenyan, and that after joining the Qin sect, she would be able to see Qin Wenyan frequently. Jun Mingchen was instantly stunned. After that, he laughed uproariously and allowed Zhao Exer to join the Qin sect. This matter even became a topic of discussion in the Qin sect. The disciples of the Qin sect were all extremely fond of this straightforward junior apprentice sister of theirs, and took good care of her. After that, he also learned that Zhao Exen had personally witnessed the battle between Qin Wenyan and the Xian brothers. At that time, Zhao Exen was already at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon, while Qin Wentian's cultivation base was the same as hers. However, the spirit and strength Qin Wenyan had displayed back then had deeply shocked her, causing her to view Qin Wenyan as her idol. After that, she decided to join the Qin sect in a muddle-headed manner. At this moment, Zhao Exen and another genius of the Qin sect, Leng Pingchao, were having a meal in a tea house. At this moment, a group of people walked in. This group of people exuded extraordinary auras, especially those in the lead. Their eyes gleamed with sharpness, and it was as though one could tell with a single glance that they were extraordinary characters. After finding a place to sit down, this group of people started chatting. One of them then asked, "Senior Brother K, we've already arrived at the city of ancient emperors. What should we do next?" "We've just arrived in the city of ancient emperors and there are already people who have designs on us. Seems like the law of the jungle is extremely clear here. I'm preparing to establish my own power and use the fastest speed to stabilize my footing here," the young man slowly spoke. After that, he turned to the person beside him and asked, "Junior Brother Tianchi, do you have any ideas? Although we've just arrived, based on our understanding of the city of ancient emperors, we can directly join a powerful sect that has matured." After that, Gusu Tianchi faintly spoke, his words causing the young man in the lead to start. After that, he smiled, "Tianchi, your idea isn't bad. Have you guys just arrived in the city of ancient emperors?" At this moment, a melodious voice drifted over. This voice belonged to none other than Zhao Exe. "Miss, what's the matter?" Gusu Tianchi asked. "I heard that you guys want to join a power in the city of ancient emperors. Right now in the city of ancient emperors, my Qin sect is extremely famous. You guys can try and see if you're able to join and become a disciple of our Qin sect." Zhao Exen's melodious voice rang out as she smiled at everyone, actually taking the initiative to recommend the Qin sect. Qin sect? Gusu Tianchi's eyes flickered as he involuntarily thought of a certain person in his mind. That silhouette on the battle platform back then. Could he be in the city of ancient emperors now? If he was, how was he doing now? "Miss, are there many beauties like you in the Qin sect?" Among Gusu Tianchi's group, an ugly young man with a protruding mouth and ape-like cheeks called out to Zhao Exe. "Naturally, the beauties of our Qin sect are the most famous in the city of ancient emperors. The two most beautiful beauties in the city of ancient emperors are both from our Qin sect." Zhao Exiner smiled. "Oh, is that so?" That ape-like young man rubbed his chin as he laughed. "Miss, are you trying to seduce us with your beauty? Our group of people are all extraordinary characters. If we join the Qin sect, can these beauties of the city of ancient emperors accompany us, brothers?" As the sound of his voice faded, many in the group had faint smiles on their faces. They didn't seem to mind such a prank. However, the gazes of the people at the side all turned over. Seems like these people had truly just arrived in the city of ancient emperors. They even dared to tease the two beauties of the Qin sect? Their guts weren't small at all. "You brat, this is the first time you've arrived. Don't talk nonsense." Kei Tianyi smiled at the ugly young man. Although he sounded like he was scolding the ugly young man, his tone was as light as the clouds and wind. Evidently, he didn't mind it too much. However, Zhao Exen's countenance grew incredibly unsightly as she coldly stated, "Apologize for your words earlier." That ugly young man stared at Zhao Exer as he laughed. "Beauty, if you want this elder brother to apologize, why don't you come over and have a seat?" "How dare you!" A cold intent gushed forth from Zhao Exe. Lung Pingchao, who was beside her, also glared at the ugly young man. "Sir, aren't you going overboard?" The ugly young man coldly swept his gaze over, as though he didn't mind at all. He laughed. "You guys are the ones who said it yourself. Since you want to seduce me, let me enjoy the taste of a beauty." This group of people were all supreme geniuses of the Dongshengshan Gate. Yet, they encountered a bandit from another sect the moment they entered the city of ancient emperors. Although they managed to force them back, their moods weren't very good. "Enough." Kei Tianyi spoke, glaring at the person who spoke. After which, he turned to Zhao Exe. "Miss, this fellow likes to joke around. Don't mind him." Zhao Exenger's countenance turned cold. "Do you think this is very funny? I want you guys to apologize." Kei Tianyi furrowed his brows. With a single glance, he could tell that Zhao Exenger and Leng Pingchao were both 7th-level ascendants. They should be from some minor sect in the city of ancient emperors. Apologize? You're thinking too much. That ugly young man coldly laughed. Kei Tianyi indifferently replied, "Miss, this matter ends here." "What do you mean by that?" Zhao Exen stared at Kei Tianyi, her countenance cold. Insulting others with words and not apologizing? And here? Kei Tianyi frowned. He was already in a bad mood. This time around, he came to the city of ancient emperors because he wanted to break through to immortal foundation. During these years, he had been cultivating under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and had yet to ascend to immortality. Hence, he wanted to see if there was any good fortune in the city of ancient emperors. But after entering the city of ancient emperors, he was repeatedly disturbed, causing his mood to worsen. He glanced at Zhao Exner and spoke, "Scram back to your sect. If you want us to apologize, get your sect leader to come here and talk to me." Chapter 954. This Kei Tianyi was none other than the personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, a descendant of the scarce moon immortal king. Once in a particle world, he appeared together with Qin Wenyan, Hua Taishu and the others. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor came to accept him as a disciple and eventually accepted him as his personal disciple, allowing him to inherit the legacy of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. In the Dongshengsheng Gate, his status was extremely high. He originally had shocking talent and was willing to work hard in his cultivation, stepping into the 9th level of celestial phenomenon for quite some time. Right now, he only wanted to establish his immortal foundation and become an immortal. This time around, he led many disciples of the Dongshengsheng Gate to cultivate in the city of ancient emperors. These people were all important characters of the Dongshengsheng Gate and had outstanding talent. Gusu Tianqi was extremely dazzling back then during the once-a-100-year grand event of the Dongshengsheng Gate, and was accepted as a personal disciple by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Just a month ago, Gusu Tianqi also broke through to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. Other than the two of them being personal disciples, the others were all honorary disciples of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. As for the others, they were all successors of the immortal kings of the Dongshengsheng Gate. Their group was extremely powerful, and even though they came to the city of ancient emperors where geniuses were as common as the clouds, they were still extremely confident that with their strength, they would be able to establish a supreme power that could sweep through the entire city of ancient emperors. Not long after they entered the city of ancient emperors, there was actually a small sect that wanted to rob them. In a fit of anger, they barged into the headquarters of that sect and injured the sect leader of that sect. Only then did they heave a sigh of relief. Now that they came here, it was merely a joke. A little lass at the 7th level of celestial phenomenon actually wanted them to apologize? How laughable! Thus, when Kei Tianyi saw that the other party was unwilling to let him off, he bluntly told him to scram. Zhao Exen pointed her finger at Kei Tianyi as she coldly spoke. "You guys were so disrespectful to the Southern Phoenix sect and Princess Qing. Now, you even dare to ask the leader of my sect to come here? I will definitely not let this matter rest." Bang! Kei Tianyi slammed his palms onto the table, instantly shattering the table they were sitting on. A cold intent radiated from him as he stared at Zhao Exen. His eyes were like a cold moon, extremely cold. At this moment, the atmosphere in the tea house suddenly tensed up. The ugly prodigy who had spoken rudely just now stared at Zhao Exer and said, "You really don't want face when we give it to you." Not to mention being disrespectful, even if the so-called beauties of your sect sent themselves to our doorstep, whether we accept them or not depends on our mood. Shameless! Zhao Exener cursed in a low voice, only to see the ugly youth's silhouette flickering as he directly left his seat. His speed was extremely fast, like a shadow. Zhao Exener lifted her palms and blasted out, only to see that the ugly youth's silhouette was like a ghost. His hand directly brushed past Zhao Exener's face before he instantly returned to his original position, as fast as the wind. The skin is very soft. The ugly young man placed his hand before his nose and sniffed. "Do you want to return the two beauties of your sect to this young master and let this young master touch them?" His evil gaze contained hints of provocation, causing Zhao Exener's countenance to turn red from embarrassment. A cold intent gushed forth from her, yet she only saw Lung Pingchao pulling her back as she transmitted her voice. "Exe, calm down. These people aren't good people. Let's go look for the people of the Qin sect." Zhao Exener's body stiffened, her eyes filled with anger as she stared at the ugly young man. Such humiliation to a girl like her, how unbearable would it be? Let's go. Leng Pingchao pulled Zhao Exen and retreated, preparing to leave. You want to leave just like that? Kei Tianyi coldly spoke, his cold intent enveloping the entire tea house. The people in the tea house all had expressions of interest on their faces when they sensed this. This person was very strong, and in fact, the people in his group were all extremely powerful characters. They were most definitely from an immortal emperor-ranked power in the immortal realms. Not only that, they didn't even know who the Qin sect was, nor did they know the names of the Southern Phoenix and Princess Qin. Evidently, they had just entered the city of ancient emperors not too long ago. Ever since the Qin sect monopolized the 3rd, 4th, and 5th ranks, no one in the city of ancient emperors dared to find trouble with them. Even Mo Xie had vanished without a trace. But now, this group of people actually dared to provoke the Qin sect the moment they entered the city of ancient emperors? How interesting. Things were going to get interesting soon. The people in the city of ancient emperors were all geniuses with pride in their hearts. Since these people were so brazen, the people in the tea house couldn't be bothered to warn them. What else do you want? Leng Pingchao asked, while Zhao Exen glared at Kei Tianyi with rage. She can stay, you can leave. Go get the people from your sect to come here. Kei Tianyi pointed to Zhao Exen as he spoke, telling her to stay here while Leng Pingchao went to get reinforcements. The other geniuses at the table exchanged glances, their eyes gleaming with sharpness, as though they were all extremely excited. This person was truly arrogant. He actually took the initiative to tell Zhao Exen to stay behind, while Leng Pingchao went to get reinforcements. How arrogant was this? He simply had no one in his eyes and wanted to provoke the geniuses of the city of ancient emperors, provoking an entire sect. Zhao Exen's countenance turned pale. Leng Pingchao's eyes flickered as she spoke. My junior apprentice sister's personality is more impulsive, please don't take offense. I'm willing to stay behind as an apology while my junior apprentice sister goes to get reinforcements. How about it? This Leng Pingchao isn't bad, she can really endure. The people at the side silently mused. No, you leave, she stays behind. I don't want to say this again. Kei Tianyi's tone was ice cold, causing Leng Pingchao's expression to turn incredibly unsightly. After which, she turned to Zhao Exen and spoke, Junior apprentice sister, wait for me in the tea house. At the same time, Leng Pingchao transmitted her voice over, Exen, don't be impulsive. We shouldn't fight when the odds are against us. I'll be back very soon. Farewell. Leng Pingchao clasped her hands to Kei Tianyi and the others, after which her silhouette flickered as she directly departed. That person is truly tactful. The ugly young man laughed. It's fine to let him get reinforcements. What bullshit sect is this? If their sect leader comes here, he can either kneel down and apologize, or make him lie on the ground. There are many experts in the city of ancient emperors. Don't underestimate the geniuses here. Kei Tianyi waved his hands. But although he said so, from his actions, no one could tell that he valued Qin Wendian in the slightest. He turned his gaze onto Gusu Tianchi as he asked, Junior brother, why aren't you speaking? We came to the city of ancient emperors to temper ourselves. It's fine if we just taught her a few sentences. Why must we create such a commotion? Gusu Tianchi calmly spoke. He was also a personal disciple of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, and his status was the same as Kei Tianyi. Hence, he spoke his mind directly without any reservations. Junior brother, you've also seen it for yourself. I've already said that this matter ends here, but this woman is unwilling to forgive us. If I don't be more serious, I might be laughed at by others for being a coward. Since the sects in the city of ancient emperors are so arrogant, let's teach them a good lesson. Kei Tianyi faintly spoke. In addition, the reason we came here was originally to contend against the geniuses of the city of ancient emperors. Junior brother, after the battle at the Dongshengshan Gate back then, your sharpness has been greatly diminished. Gusu Tianchi's eyes flickered. He naturally knew that Kei Tianyi was referring to that battle. Back then during the battle at the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, he, Gusu Tianchi, was the one with the highest support and was publicly acknowledged to be one of the top rankers. After that, during the final battle, two dark horses, Qin Wenyan and Jun Mengchen, actually trampled on him. This matter truly had a great impact on Gusu Tianqi. The Gusu clan has generations of immortal kings. I believe that junior brother will also be able to become a supreme immortal king. You should continue to be arrogant. Since there are people who want to use their sex to suppress us, let's show them that our Dongshengshan gate is useless. There are many descendants of immortal kings and emperors in the city of ancient emperors, and in the future, they would all become major characters in the immortal realms. If we can stand at the peak of these geniuses, we would be able to look down on the entire immortal realms with disdain. Kei Tianyi spoke in arrogance. Gusu Tianqi's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything more. After speaking, Kei Tianyi turned his gaze onto Zhao Exo. You, come over here. Zhao Exion's face turned ashen. She stared at Kei Tianyi and walked towards him. Are you not convinced? Kei Tianyi coldly laughed. You better pray that the sect leader of your sect comes here personally. Also, I really want to see the beauties of your Qin sect. If they come, I will get them to pick up the shattered fragments on the ground and let you personally see what it means to lower your head. Beauties? Kei Tianyi had seen too many beauties before. Many of them had outstanding talent and wanted to have a relationship with him even in their dreams. Even for some of the female geniuses of the Dongshengshan Gate, didn't they also easily climb into his bed to please him? Cough cough. A person who had his back facing Kei Tianyi coughed, spitting out the tea in the tea house. Kei Tianyi's eyes flashed as he turned his gaze over, only to see that person coughing a few more times before laughing in a low voice. Such treatment, no one in the city of ancient emperors has ever enjoyed it before. Seems like I have to make an exception. Kei Tianyi coldly laughed. Nobody else in the tea house spoke. They were all thinking that these people from the Dongshengshan Gate were truly arrogant enough. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor actually accepted such an arrogant disciple. Should he be happy? Perhaps. The people in the tea house all stopped chatting and laughing. Only the group of people from the Dongshengshan Gate were still chatting with fervor and assurance, as though they were the only ones here. They seemed to be enjoying this feeling, but they seemed to have forgotten one point. Although the tea house was very quiet, not a single person had left. It was as though they were all waiting for something. They're here. Finally, Kei Tianyi calmly spoke. After which, they saw a group of silhouettes flying over from afar. This group of silhouettes directly descended and entered the tea house. The person in the lead exuded magnificence through the generations, incomparably cold and arrogant. This person was none other than Nanfeng Yunxi. Upon seeing Namhuang Yunxi, the people from the Dongshengshan Gate all had looks of astonishment on their faces. Evidently, they were all taken aback. The beauty that Zhao Exen spoke of was actually a supreme beauty. Beautiful. The ugly young man's eyes shone with a strange light as he stared at Namhuang Yunxi's slender figure. His eyes kept wandering up and down her body as he salivated. Nanfeng Yunxi's eyes flickered, her fiery eyes stared at the ugly young man. A moment later, a red glow filled the skies as she abruptly pointed her finger forward. That ugly young man instantly felt a terrifying sense of danger. He abruptly stood up, only to see numerous beams of terrifying red light slashing downwards. These were none other than the feathers of a phoenix. Arg. Chapter 955. The countenances of the people from the Dongshengshan Gate drastically changed. Evidently, they didn't expect this woman to act so ruthlessly the moment she arrived. She was so decisive and powerful, blinding their comrade with a single strike. Not only that, among the people from the Qin sect who surrounded them, there were several people with tyrannical strength. The auras they emitted were incomparably ferocious, causing others to feel stifled. Baleful auras could be seen on the faces of these people, and the ice-cold air they exuded engulfed the entire tea house, causing the atmosphere to become incomparably stifling. The ugly youth who was blinded screamed out in pain. He cursed angrily, "Blind man, I've been blinded. Senior brother, kill this bitch. I want her dead." Kei Tianyi and the others didn't act. At this moment, they had calmed down. The strength of the Qin sect seemed to have exceeded their expectations. Sister Nan Feng. Zhao Exen called out, wanting to run over. However, Ke Tianyi stretched out his palm as a terrifying coldness enveloped Zhao Exen, wanting to freeze her life force. Release her. Namhuang Yunshi spoke with cold arrogance. Behind her, the silhouette of an ancient phoenix could be seen flickering. She took a step forward as a red glow enveloped this entire space. Incomparably bright flames erupted from her body, exuding a might that could incinerate everything. You blinded my junior brother, and you want me to release him? Ke Tianyi coldly spoke. Didn't you guys want to meet with the people of the Qin sect? We're here, and we're standing right here. If you want to defeat me, do you think you can blind my eyes and use a woman to threaten me? I heard that you were extremely arrogant before this. How did you suddenly become a coward? Namhuang Yunshi's tone was cold and arrogant. As the number 3 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, how could Namhuang Yunshi's prestige be weak? Release him. If not, I'm afraid it won't be as simple as blinding one of his eyes. Another voice rang out. The person who spoke was also a woman. It was none other than the number 9 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, Su Rushua. She had also joined the Qin sect and was now a part of it. I'm really curious. Who are these people exactly? They actually dared to summon the sect leader of the Qin sect the moment they entered the city of ancient emperors. Right now, only Zi Daoyang and Mo Xie would have the guts to do so. But I'm truly disappointed to see these people. Li Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest, staring at these people with a teasing look in his eyes. Back then, he had lost all faith in Shaolingyue and left the Shao sect. After Qin Wendian rose up, he chose to join the Qin sect. He had already seen Qin Wendian when he first entered the city of ancient emperors. Qin Wendian rose up in such a short period of time, becoming the number 4 ranker in the Immortal Ascension rankings. In the city of ancient emperors, this could already be considered a legend. You are the sect leader of the Qin sect? Ke Tianyi stared at Nanfeng Yunshi as he asked. No. Nanfeng Yunshi icily replied. However, it's the same for you when you see me. What power does the Qin sect belong to in the city of ancient emperors? Ke Tianyi's eyes flashed as he asked. Before this, he had thought that this was just an ordinary sect. But now, looking at the formation and the aura radiating from the other party, he seemed to have been wrong. Not only that, he was ridiculously wrong. This peerlessly beautiful woman before him was so powerful that even he could feel the immense pressure radiating from her. You talk a lot of nonsense. Su Rushue said contemptuously, Lung Pingchao has already conveyed your previous words. You guys were rude and even humiliated the people of the Qin sect. How should we settle this matter? What do you want? Ke Tianyi asked. Everyone, if no one slaps themselves 10 times, the Qin sect will not pursue this matter. Namhuang Yunshi said coldly, causing the faces of the people of the Dongshengshan Gate to darken. Slap themselves? What a joke. Gusu Tianqi coldly spoke. If you want to fight, let's fight. If you are a man, release her and fight. Namhuang Yunshi stared at Ke Tianyi as she spoke. Ke Tianyi lifted Zhao Exen up, sealing her in ice. With a flick of his palm, he slammed it into Zhao Exen's back. In just an instant, Zhao Exen's entire body was sealed in ice as she was flung out of the inn. Namhuang Yunshi's silhouette abruptly flickered, directly grabbing onto Zhao Exen's falling body. The power of her flames gushed into Zhao Exen's body, yet Zhao Exen couldn't help but to tremble, as though she was enduring an intense pain. I'm the disciple of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, Ke Tianyi. All of us are disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate, yet you blinded a disciple of my sect with a single strike, yet you want me to release her so easily? Are you satisfied with this? As the sound of Ke Tianyi's voice faded, the coldness radiating from him engulfed the entire space. A terrifying cold moon appeared above his head as his battle intent gushed forth. Namhuang Yunshi carried Zhao Exen's body back as she spoke in a low voice. Exen, I will make him pay the price. After speaking, she passed Zhao Exen to someone beside her as she walked forward. Her gaze was fixed on Ke Tianyi's group, and within her eyes, There seemed to be the cry of an ancient phoenix. With a rumbling sound, blazing flames soared up into the sky, engulfing this entire space. Disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? Never heard of him before. Namhuang Yunshi coldly spoke. Her finger pointed forward once more as the entire space was enveloped by the red light. The silhouette of a phoenix manifested behind her as red feathers slashed towards the space ahead. The expressions of the disciples of the Dongshengxian Gate all changed. They stared at Namhuang Yunshi, who was floating in the air, akin to a goddess, unexcelled in this world. Puchi! Fresh blood gushed out as one of them was struck by the phoenix, his arm directly severed. Kei Tianyi stepped out as the coldness of the moon enveloped him. Similarly, he shot towards Namhuang Yunshi, wanting to freeze this entire space to death. The phoenix and the cold moon clashed in the air. The cries of the ancient phoenix could be heard as the seething red flames directly enveloped the cold moon, seeping into it. This scene caused Kei Tianyi's countenance to instantly turn pale. His strength was actually at a disadvantage. At the instant Namhuang Yunshi erupted forth with her strength, the entire tea house was instantly incinerated into ashes. The spectators all retreated, staring at the disciples of the Dongshengxian Gate. This bunch of arrogant fellows actually didn't know how to keep a low profile the moment they entered the city of ancient emperors. Seems like they would have to pay a painful lesson for their actions. Gusu Tianqi's strength was extremely powerful. He released his sun furnace as 9 resplendent suns appeared, incomparably resplendent. Although Gusu Tianqi became the disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor after Kei Tianyi, in truth, the disciples of the Dongshengxian Gate all felt that Gusu Tianqi was more outstanding compared to Kei Tianyi. His talent was higher, it was just that he entered the sect later than Kei Tianyi. After stepping into the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, Gusu Tianqi was extremely powerful. He slashed out with his sun spear, forcing several experts of the Qin sect to retreat. Su Rushue's long whip directly lashed out, aiming for Gusu Tianqi. Her whip shadows filled the sky as boundless runic light flashed, lashing downwards. Gusu Tianqi's countenance was calm. With a roar of rage, a 10,000-meter-long spear light shot out from his sun furnace, engulfing the heavens and earth, directly clashing against the whip shadows. Piercing sounds rang out unceasingly. Gusu Tianqi discovered that his terrifying sun spear was completely destroyed by the whip shadows. The whip shadows contained a destructive might that could destroy anything it came into contact with. Other than these people, the other experts also started to clash against each other. But the moment the battle started, the disciples of the Dongshengxian Gate immediately showed signs of being in a disadvantageous position. They were completely suppressed. What was even more terrifying was that just as the battle erupted, Kei Tianyi's cold moon constellation was already being corroded by Namhuang Yunshi's energy. The ancient phoenix flew above the cold moon, its sharp claws wanting to destroy it. Namhuang Yunshi's aura was so powerful that Kei Tianyi had to use all his strength to defend against her every attack. Kei Tianyi's countenance could already be described as pale. As the personal disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, he had never felt such a sense of defeat before. He wasn't a match at all. Even though he was a personal disciple of an immortal emperor, in front of this maiden, he wasn't even strong enough. Boom! Kei Tianyi's body was struck as he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. When the people of the Dongshengxian Gate saw this scene, none of them could laugh anymore. Their faces were all drained of blood. Before this, they had also swept through the various sects in the city of ancient emperors. But this time around, the situation was completely different. Their core character, the personal disciple of the immortal emperor, Kei Tianyi, was already injured in a short exchange of blows. As for the other personal disciple of the immortal emperor, Gusu Tianqi, although he was still holding on, it was clear that he was being suppressed. As one of the top 10 rankers in the Immortal Ascension rankings, he wasn't someone Gusu Tianqi, who had just broken through to the 9th level of celestial phenomenon, could contend against. Bzz. Nanfeng Yunshi didn't seem to have any intentions of stopping. She was as fast as lightning. A phoenix sword appeared in her palm as she directly slashed out, causing the space around her to be filled with blazing flames. Ke Tianyi was greatly shocked. He used all of his strength to defend, yet he was directly slashed apart by that phoenix sword that contained a terrifying might. As that sword slashed down, a bloody line appeared on Ke Tianyi's body. His robes were torn apart, and he was almost killed by that sword. He was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. "Sir, please stay your hand." Seeing that Nam Huang Yunshi still wanted to continue attacking, Ke Tianyi shouted, "It's just a misunderstanding. Why must you kill me? You are truly shameless." Leng Pingchao, who was at the back, cursed. Nam Huang Yunshi stared at Ke Tianyi with disdain in her eyes as she spoke. "The disciple of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor is actually so weak? In that case, let me help him clean up his sect." "You dare to kill me?" Ke Tianyi's expression froze when he heard this. "I'm the personal disciple of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. Such a weak disciple, even if I kill you, he wouldn't take revenge for you." As the sound of Nam Huang Yunshi's voice faded, her silhouette flickered once more as a red glow enveloped the entire space. A supreme destructive light enveloped this entire space as she stabbed out with her finger, wanting to destroy the entire space. Ke Tianyi's entire body turned cold. How can this be? How can this be? What sort of status did the personal disciple of an immortal emperor have? How could this woman before him dare to say such arrogant words? Even if she killed him, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor wouldn't take revenge for him? A malevolent light flashed in Ke Tianyi's eyes. Since this is the case, he shall let him meet his master, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. Ke Tianyi didn't use his immortal ranked weapon to defend against this energy. A fearsome pressure gushed forth from him, and with a thunderous boom, all the energy in the surroundings was instantly wiped out. The immortal sense of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor had appeared. Chapter 956. The immortal sense of immortal emperors was stored in the bodies of these geniuses. They could enter the city of ancient emperors, but they weren't allowed to break the rules of the city of ancient emperors. At the instant the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor's immortal sense appeared, Emperor Might swept through the entire space. Ke Tianyi respectfully called out, "Master?" Gusu Tianqi also called out, "We pay our respects to the immortal emperor." The people of the Dongshengshan Gate all had expressions of respect on their faces. The battle stopped as the experts of the Qin sect stared at the immortal emperor who appeared. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor's gaze landed on Nam Huang Yunshi as a faint pressure enveloped Nam Huang Yunshi. However, Nam Huang Yunshi was as cold and arrogant as ever. She stared at Ke Tianyi with disdain as she spoke. "Senior Eastern sage, this personal disciple of yours isn't strong enough, yet he has no one in his eyes. Now that he was defeated, he actually forced out your immortal sense. Doesn't Senior feel that such a personal disciple is a loss of face?" Ke Tianyi pointed his finger at Nam Huang Yunshi. "My disciples haven't been in the city of ancient emperors for long. Even if they have offended you in any way, is there a need to be so ruthless?" The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor emotionlessly spoke. "Senior, why don't you ask your disciples what they did? When they just entered the city of ancient emperors, your disciples humiliated the disciples of my Qin sect and even wanted the sect leader of my Qin sect to come and see them. How tyrannical! However, they couldn't even withstand a single strike. Senior's reputation has already been thrown away by your disciples." Nam Huang Yunshi spoke in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. She stared at the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor as she spoke. "Are you a descendant of the Southern Phoenix matriarch of the Nam Huang clan?" The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor suddenly asked. When he first appeared and saw the phoenix silhouette on Nam Huang Yunshi's body, he had already guessed her identity. Now that he heard Nam Huang Yunshi's words, he was extremely disappointed with Ke Tianyi in his heart. If not for Ke Tianyi's good luck, he wouldn't have accepted him as a disciple. From a certain perspective, it was all thanks to Qin Wenyan that Ke Tianyi was accepted as a personal disciple. "Yes," Nam Huang Yunshi replied. "Ke Tianyi, apologize." Dongsheng Heaven Emperor's imposing voice rang out, causing Ke Tianyi's expression to stiffen. He had also heard of the Nam Huang clan before, but he didn't expect that this supreme beauty before him was actually someone from the Nam Huang clan. Moreover, She was the descendant of the Southern Phoenix matriarch. Now his master, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, wanted him to apologize. Give me some face. I'll ask my disciple to apologize, and we'll drop the matter. How about that? Dongsheng Heaven Emperor said to Nam Huang Yunshi, if an apology is useful, what's the point of fighting? Nam Huang Yunshi decisively rejected. Since we are already in the city of ancient emperors, it's best that senior doesn't interfere in the matters of the juniors. It would only damage senior's face. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor's expression sank. Nam Huang Yunshi actually didn't give him, an immortal emperor, any face at all. What do you want then? The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor asked. This disciple of yours humiliated a disciple of my Qin sect and even injured a member of my sect. My cultivation base is the same as his, so this can't be considered bullying the weak. In addition, he is Senior's personal disciple. Senior shouldn't have any reason to stop me from fighting him, right? Nam Huang Yunshi spoke with cold arrogance. Kei Tianyi's expression froze when he heard this. Before this, he had already fought against Nam Huang Yunshi, and it was clear that he was inferior to her. If they continued to fight, he would definitely be defeated. Also, this young woman before him definitely didn't simply want to defeat him. Just as they were speaking, a terrifying might gushed forth from the air, enveloping this entire space. A blurry face appeared in the air, peering down at the people below. This is the city of ancient emperors. The rules cannot be broken. It's time for you to leave. I won't act in the city of ancient emperors and violate the rules here. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor inclined his head and stared at the air. Give me a little more time. I will leave after I ask a few questions. Fine. Let them settle their grudges in the city of ancient emperors themselves. You are not to interfere. The voice drifted down. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor stared at Nam Huang Yunshi as he spoke. Since a descendant of the Southern Phoenix matriarch has joined, this sect must be extraordinary and should have some magnanimity. Why must you be so calculative with them who have just entered the city of ancient emperors? In addition, my disciples all have immortal ranked weapons. If we really fought, I'm afraid there would be many casualties. Why must you do this? You truly think highly of your disciples. A voice drifted over from afar. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor's eyes turned sharp as he turned his gaze over. After that, he saw a few figures walking over. The eyes of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor narrowed as a cold light flickered within. These people were actually Qin Wenyan, Jun Mingchen, and Qing. There was no need to say anything more about Qin Wenyan. Jun Mingchen had also publicly rejected his offer to become his disciple, causing him to lose face. The daughter of Chongqing the Great, Qing was actually together with Qin Wenyan. Kei Tianyi and Gusitanchi also saw the newcomers. Their gazes were filled with sharpness as they stared at Qin Wenyan. Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, your character is terrible. Your disciples are similar to you as well, a bunch of scum who only know how to bully the weak. What a joke. Qin Wenyan and the others flew over, standing in the air. Who the hell do you think you are? Do you have the qualifications to speak here? Kei Tianyi glanced at Qin Wenyan. He was already feeling extremely sullen. Now this Qin Wenyan even dared to humiliate him. How impudent. Qin Wenyan stared at Kei Tianyi as a mocking smile appeared on his face. After that, he walked forward and spoke. Trash, like you actually dared to speak so arrogantly? Back then when you and I participated in the disciple recruitment event of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor actually accepted you as his personal disciple. What a joke. Dongsheng Heaven Emperor turned his gaze onto Qin Wenyan as a terrifying pressure gushed forth. Upon feeling this pressure, Qin Wenyan laughed. What? Does the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor want to act against me in the city of ancient emperors? Do you have the qualifications to speak here? Dongsheng Heaven Emperor turned his gaze to Qin Wenyan as he coldly spoke. Scram. Scram? Qin Wenyan laughed. This place is the city of ancient emperors, not your Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. In the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures, you can use all sorts of despicable methods and no one would dare to say anything. But this place is the city of ancient emperors. Old dog Eastern sage, boom! A violent might gushed forth, boring down on Qin Wenin. Impudent! A terrifying might gushed forth from the air, enveloping the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor as he spoke. Do you want me to invite you to leave? The gazes of everyone turned to Qin Wenin. This fellow actually had a grudge with the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor and actually dared to insult the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, calling him old dog Eastern sage. This was a great disrespect, even daring to do this to an immortal emperor. This was simply too impudent. You are courting death. Kei Tianyi coldly stared at Qin Wenin. Shut up. Qin Wenin glanced at Kei Tianyi as coldness flashed in his eyes. His gaze was terrifying to the extreme as he stared at Kei Tianyi. For a character like you, killing you would only dirty my hands. It's just that you humiliated a member of my Qin sect. Kei Tianyi, your life is destined to remain in the city of ancient emperors. Since you are courting death, no one here can protect you. Qin sect? You are also a member of the Qin sect? The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor stared at him. After that, he turned to Namhuang Yunshi and spoke. This person's character isn't good, publicly insulting a senior. As a descendant of the Southern Phoenix matriarch, how can you accept such a person into your sect? Last Qin, your father and I are good friends. It's best if you keep your distance from this person. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor stared at Qin as he spoke. Qin countenance turned cold. She stared at the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor as she spoke. You are the most hypocritical person I've ever met. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor froze, but it wasn't good for him to act up. He could only reply, no matter what, you can be considered my niece. Maybe you might have some misunderstandings about me, but you have to know that I'm doing this for your own good. Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, there's no need for you to worry about the matters between us. This place is the city of ancient emperors. Your sect members are flaunting their prowess here. Even if they couldn't defeat you, they still chose to stand up. Such a character truly isn't good. How can the juniors respect them? Namhuang Yunshi coldly laughed. Also, Qin Wenin isn't a member of the Qin sect. He isn't? A look of bewilderment appeared on the face of Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. He is the sect leader of the Qin sect. Su Rushue, who was at the side, spoke. The geniuses of the Qin sect all turned their gazes to Qin Wenin as they asked, Sect leader, how should we deal with these arrogant members of the Dongshengshan Gate? Sect leader? The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor froze. Qin Wenin was actually the sect leader of the Qin sect? This is impossible. Kei Tianyi's face turned ashen. He had already experienced the strength of the Qin sect. This was an extremely terrifying power. Even someone as powerful as Namhuang Yunshi had joined them. How could Qin Wenin be the sect leader of the Qin sect? Old dog Eastern sage, you didn't expect this, right? Given the standard of your disciples, luckily me and senior brother Qin rejected you back then at the Dongshengshan Gate. If not, wouldn't we be the same as this person, nurtured into trash by you? Jun Mengchen pointed at Kei Tianyi and laughed coldly. Your personal disciple doesn't even have the qualifications to carry my senior brother's shoes. You still dare to tell my senior brother to scram? Trash? Kei Tianyi's aura gushed forth frenziedly as numerous cold moons engulfed the area. He stepped out, moving towards Qin Wenin as he roared in rage. Qin Wenin, I want to see what qualifications you have to strut around here. Qin's aura was ice cold. Just when she was about to step out, Qin Wenin spoke in a low voice. Qin, let me handle this. Qin halted her steps. After which, she saw Qin Wenin stepping out as rumbling sounds rang out from his body. His aura was extremely shocking, and his entire body circulated with a brilliant battle light. Runic light illuminated the skies as a supreme suppressive might gushed forth, containing an incomparably violent aura. God's hand appeared. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with coldness as he stared at Kei Tianyi walking over. Kei Tianyi roared. Beams of cold moons gushed forth, shooting towards Qin Wenin. However, Qin Wenin only lifted his palm and directly grabbed out. God's hand transformed into a gigantic palm that blotted out the sun, sweeping away all energy. A stifling pressure engulfed this entire space as thunderous rumbling sounds rang out. The cold moons were directly destroyed as the gigantic palm descended from the sky, grabbing towards Kei Tianyi. At this instant, Kei Tianyi felt like he was about to suffocate. Staring at the incoming god's hand, he felt a sense of helplessness. That terrifying suppressive might caused even his soul to tighten. Bang! Qin Wentian's palm slammed down, directly injuring Kei Tianyi. Not only that, Kei Tianyi was also trapped within the palm. At this moment, Qin Wentian's god's hand ignored the distance and directly grabbed Kei Tianyi in the air. Kei Tianyi let out a low-sounding roar, yet he saw that Qin Wentian didn't even bother to glance at him. He was only staring at the Dongxing Heaven Emperor as he spoke. "Is this your personal disciple?" Chapter 957. The sect leader of the Qin sect. Was it impossible? At this moment, Kei Tianyi truly felt Qin Wentian's strength. That young man who stood arrogantly in the air, that lowly young man who once stared at him from below the stage, was now facing him with an unexcelled attitude. Back then, he was a character accepted by the Dongshengsheng Gate as a personal disciple while Qin Wentian was merely an abandoned person. The two of them should have continued to pull apart the distance between them, and Qin Wentian should have been destined to never be able to catch up to him. However, everything was turned upside down in a single strike. Although he was accepted as a personal disciple by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, he was injured and captured by Qin Wentian with just a single strike. In addition, his cultivation base was already stronger than Qin Wentian. How intense was this humiliation? In fact, Qin Wentian didn't even glance at him, as though he was disdainful of him. In the eyes of Qin Wentian, he had never placed Kei Tianyi in his heart. Everything was because of Kei Tianyi's arrogance. The capital he was so proud of was simply not worth a mention in front of Qin Wentian. The Qin sect led by Qin Wentian was already strong enough to destroy the members of the Dongshengsheng Gate. They weren't on the same level at all. In addition, this wasn't merely a humiliation to Kei Tianyi, it was also a humiliation to the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. From a certain perspective, the humiliation to the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was even more intense. Back then, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor rejected Qin Wentian as a personal disciple and chose Kei Tianyi instead. Now, such a battle was sufficient to become a joke in the immortal realms. "You are too arrogant." The Dongxing Heaven Emperor stared at Qin Wentian. "Also, the current you is still too weak. You should understand a logic. If you show off too much, you wouldn't have a good ending." A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. "Old dog Eastern Sage, are you threatening me? Since I dared to do this, it means that I don't care about it at all. Because I know very well that just because I smacked your face back then at the Dongshengsheng Gate, even if you don't say anything, your lackeys at the Dongshengsheng Gate would definitely not spare me. Your son Dongxing Ting would definitely do everything in his power to kill me. Do you think I still need to care about your impression of me?" No matter how good Dongxing Heaven Emperor's self-restraint was, he couldn't hold back his anger at this moment. He stared at Qin Wentian as if he could explode at any time and kill Qin Wentian. Boom! A beam of destructive tribulation might descended from the sky, directly blasting into the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor, enveloping him completely. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor raised his head and looked into the void. A look of displeasure flashed in his eyes as he said coldly, "I will walk on my own." "No need, you have stayed here for too long. Since you are unwilling to leave, I can only ask you to leave." A voice rang out in the air. After that, a supreme tribulation might descended from the sky, slamming into Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense. It contained a law energy, not allowing the immortal sense of an immortal emperor to remain in the city of ancient emperors for too long. The eyes of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor flashed with anger. His body gradually turned illusory as he stared at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian only coldly spoke. "Kei Tianyi insulted my Qin sect and injured a disciple of my Qin sect. Treat his death as a way to send you off. You dare." The body of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor grew more and more blurry as a terrifying voice rang out from his mouth. Qin Wentian's palm imprint abruptly smashed downwards as a terrifying runic light enveloped Kei Tianyi, causing him to howl in unwillingness. This moment, Kei Tiany's eyes flickered with an uncontrollable terror. A beam of destructive light shot up into the sky, and after that, Kei Tiany's body was reduced to dust. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense watched this scene play out before his eyes. At this moment he didn't roar in anger, he only used his eyes to glance at Qin Wenyan before vanishing completely from this world. The killing intent in that single glance was so intense. Even though he was disappointed in Kei Tiany, Qin Wenyan still dared to kill his disciple Kei Tiany in front of him. Such an action was sufficient for Qin Wenyan to die 10,000 times over. He really killed Qin Wenyan. He actually killed the personal disciple of an immortal emperor. Before this, the geniuses in the city of ancient emperors had thought of all sorts of possibilities, but they didn't expect that Kei Tiany would really die. Although he was arrogant and thought himself infallible, thinking that he was in the Dongshengshan Gate after entering the city of ancient emperors, it wasn't easy for someone with such an identity to die. When they fought against each other, they would always have some reservations and spare the lives of their opponents. But this time was different. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense had already appeared, but he still couldn't prevent Kei Tiany's death. In front of an immortal emperor, Qin Wenyan actually killed his personal disciple. This madman. Everyone's impression of Qin Wenyan deepened. No wonder he could become a character on the same level as Zi Daoyang and Mo Xie, one of the three geniuses of the city of ancient emperors. This young man truly couldn't be judged using common sense. After the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's immortal sense vanished, the energy in the air also gradually dissipated. The experts of the Dongshengshan Gate personally saw Qin Wenyan killing Kei Tiany. Their hearts were all pounding, and when Qin Wenyan's gaze swept past them, all of them felt a faint sense of fear. The disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate are all very arrogant? Qin Wenyan swept his gaze over these people. Maybe it was because they were used to living like royalty in the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. After entering the city of ancient emperors, their attitude didn't change at all. They still had an arrogant attitude, but they didn't know that there were simply too many existences in the city of ancient emperors that could easily suppress them. Many of the disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate had seen Qin Wenyan before. During the once-a-100-year grand ceremony, Qin Wenyan had shaken the entire platform, using an unexcelled manner to obtain the position of the top ranker, accomplishing the impossible. Under Dong Shengting's rules, everyone shut their mouths. Only a few years had passed, but he no longer shone brightly on the stage of the Dongshengshan Gate. He had already shone with his own brilliance in the city of ancient emperors. Staring at the figure standing proudly in the air, the geniuses of the Dongshengshan Gate all felt a sense of defeat. Could they really be considered geniuses in front of this young man? Gusu Tianqi's state of heart fluctuated greatly. He had never expected that Qin Wenyan had already become so powerful. Kei Tiany couldn't even withstand a single strike. If he fought against Qin Wenyan, he most probably wouldn't be able to perform any better than Kei Tiany. After so many years, if they fought again, would the only ending for him be insta-killed? What do you want? A person stared at Qin Wenyan as he coldly spoke. Before this, other than Kei Tiany and that blind man, did anyone else humiliate the disciples of my Qin sect? Qin Wenyan stared at Ling Pingchao as he asked. Nope, but they all seemed to be very satisfied earlier. Lung Pingchao coldly replied. Qin Wenyan nodded his head lightly. After which, he continued, since these people were so arrogant, disciples of the Qin sect, teach them a good lesson. Although all of you are disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate, there's no life and death hatred between us. Seeing that it wasn't easy for all of you to cultivate, I won't kill you this time around. But if in the future all of you represent the Dongshengshan Gate and act against me, wanting my life, I won't show mercy. Qin Wenyan wasn't a bloodthirsty person. Even if the people before him were disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate, he wouldn't kill them all. This was Qin Wenyan's principle of doing things. The disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate heaved a sigh of relief and gave up on the thought of fighting with their lives on the line. After which, the disciples of the Qin sect all stepped forward, and an overwhelming battle erupted. The disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate had no heart to continue fighting, and in addition to the fact that they were weak, how could they contend against the Qin sect? Very swiftly, they were injured one after another, and all the treasures on them were plundered clean. The spectators all drew in a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. These people of the Qin sect were truly a bunch of bandits. Not long after, Qin Wenyan and the rest left, leaving behind the disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate with their heads hung low. Injuries could be seen all over their bodies, and their eyes flickered with anger and reluctance. However, they were helpless. Although they were lofty in the Dongshengshan Gate, in the city of ancient emperors, it was basically impossible for them to contend against the Qin sect, which was under the control of Qin Wenyan. In the eastern Sage 13 prefectures, on a misty immortal mountain, there was a majestic emperor palace. The people here, even the ordinary guards, were all at the immortal foundation realm. This place was none other than the immortal palace where the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor resided. The commands issued from here could be directly transmitted to the Dongshengshan Gate and be executed. In front of a majestic ancient palace, many figures could be seen. All of them were seated cross-legged and were incomparably quiet. It was impossible to imagine that these people were all immortal kings, but right now, they were all respectfully sitting there, quietly listening to the Tao discussion of a young man before them. That unexcelled figure was none other than the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. At this instant, the voice of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor abruptly halted, as though the melody of the great Tao had been interrupted. An incomparably intense fluctuation gushed forth from the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor as a stifling pressure gushed forth. The countenances of those immortal kings drastically changed as they opened their eyes, staring at the figure in front of them. What happened? "Your Majesty!" Someone called out. At this moment, the eyes of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor abruptly snapped open, gleaming with a cold light that could penetrate through the heavens and earth. The people in front of him all trembled as they bowed. "Your Majesty, please calm your anger." The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor finally retracted his aura and calmed down. He drew in a deep breath as he spoke. "Kei Tianyi has been killed." As the sound of his voice faded, the entire crowd was shocked. Among these immortal kings, the scarce moon immortal king was one of them. His aura fluctuated violently as his countenance drastically changed. Ever since Kei Tianyi entered the tutelage of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, the relationship between his scarce moon immortal manner and the Dongshengshan Gate was extremely close. In fact, he himself would often come to the Emperor Palace to listen to the Tao lectures of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. The scarce moon immortal manner and the Dongshengshan Gate were tightly bound together. In addition, they treated Kei Tianyi as their hope. Right now, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor said that Kei Tianyi had been killed by someone. In the city of ancient emperors, that traitor Qin Wenyan killed Kei Tianyi right in front of the eyes of this seat's immortal sense. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor slowly spoke. His voice seemed to have calmed down, yet the expressions of everyone here were filled with terror. It was as though they could sense the current state of the heart of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor from the calmness of his voice. "Pass down my command, gather all the outstanding geniuses at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon at the Dongshengshan Gate. Tell them to come here." The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor coldly spoke, his words causing the hearts of everyone to tremble violently. The immortal emperor was truly enraged. Chapter 958. In the city of ancient emperors, the disciples of the Dongshengshan Gate all had dispirited looks on their faces. All the treasures on them had been plundered clean, and all of them were injured to varying degrees. This was a great humiliation. However, they didn't have the slightest bit of anger. The reason why they were still alive was because Qin Wendian felt pity for them. If Qin Wendian gave the order to kill them, they would already be dead by now. How cruel was this? No one would think that Qin Wendian didn't dare to kill them. Qin Wendian had already killed Kei Tianyi in front of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor. Why would he care about killing a few more? If he didn't kill them, it could only be because he didn't want to. The young man who had once participated in the recruitment test at the Dongshengshan Gate was already someone who controlled their fate in the city of ancient emperors. He was the arrogant leader of the Qin sect, and the people of the Dongshengshan Gate couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. The moment they entered the city of ancient emperors, Qin Wenyan had already taught them an unforgettable lesson. Most probably, they wouldn't be able to forget this lesson for the rest of their lives. This group of geniuses seemed to have lost all signs of life. They casually strolled about in the city of ancient emperors, and at this moment, a figure appeared in the air before them. This person's entire body was pitch black, and there was a faint golden glow radiating from him. The aura he exuded was extremely sharp, and it was as though he was an extremely dangerous character. The people of the Dongshengshan Gate no longer dared to underestimate the geniuses of the city of ancient emperors. They stared at the figure in the air only to see the figure slowly descending from the sky with his hands clasped behind his back. His dark golden eyes were extremely terrifying as he stared at them. Were you all humiliated by the Qin sect? Gusu Tianqi inclined his head and stared at the person who just arrived. This has nothing to do with you, right? The person before him had a cold smile on his face as he spoke. I just so happen to want to establish a sect. In the future, all of you can follow me. Arrogant. The people of Dongshengshan Gate all stared at the silhouette floating in front of them. Another arrogant person. With just a word, he wanted the geniuses of Dongshengshan Gate to follow him? Although we were defeated, that doesn't mean we are weak. Why should we follow you? One of them asked in a cold tone. The anger they had been suppressing seemed like it would erupt at any moment. But that person coldly laughed. Don't you guys feel that right now in the city of ancient emperors, all of you are so lowly and lowly? But I, Xie, can allow you guys to live proudly in the city of ancient emperors. I, Xie, can bestow glory upon all of you. The figure that appeared was none other than Xie. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he flew towards the people of the Dongshengshan Gate. A fearsome aura gushed forth from him, causing everyone to feel how powerful he was. Gusu Tianqi's countenance drastically changed as he stared at Xie. Qin Wendian alone is sufficient to cause all of you to lose all face. As long as he's here, all of you will never be able to lift your heads up high in the city of ancient emperors. As for me, I alone am sufficient to intimidate the entire Qin sect. Xie's silhouette was incomparably arrogant. He appeared before Gusu Tianqi and stretched his palms out. Instantly, Gusu Tianqi only felt a stifling pressure boring down on him. That fearsome aura was so heavy that he couldn't even breathe. Boom! Gusu Tianqi released his constellation as a sun furnace appeared. Blazing flames towered up into the sky. Xie inclined his head. His dark golden eyes were incomparably terrifying as he stared at the numerous suns. Numerous sun spears shot towards him. Xie stretched his hands out in the air as a terrifying dark golden palm imprint directly grabbed hold of the sun spears, shattering them apart. With a thunderous boom, the sun furnace was overturned by the palm imprint as terrifying flames ravaged the surroundings. At the same time, Xie stood before Gusu Tianqi as he spoke. In front of me, even Qin Wenyan could only flee for his life. How can all of you be my opponent? Follow me or die. As the sound of Xie's voice faded, a destructive might enveloped everyone from the Dongshengshan Gate. It was as though he alone was enough to annihilate all the geniuses before him. Gusu Tianqi stared at the dark golden eyes of Xie. He finally understood why the geniuses of the immortal realms would come to the city of ancient emperors to temper themselves. Only in this place would they be able to see the most outstanding geniuses. Only in this place would they not be frogs at the bottom of a well, thinking that their talent was unrivaled under the heavens. Xie recruited these people from the Dongshengshan Gate who were humiliated by the Qin sect into his subordinates. Not only so, after that, news of Xie establishing his own sect circulated around the city of ancient emperors, and many people rushed over to join him. This was Xie, the number 2 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings. He was a character even stronger than Qin Wendian and Namhuang Yunxi. Why was the Violet sect so powerful? It was because they had the number 1 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, Zi Daoyang. And now, Xie had established his own power and named it the Evil Palace. The rise of the Evil Palace was already destined. In a short span of a few days, the Evil Palace had already gathered over 100 geniuses. Among them, there were no lack of rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and all of them were extremely ruthless. This caused people to think of the declining Twin Stars Alliance. Because the Twin Stars Alliance and Qin Wendian were enemies, and they had once lost to Qin Wendian, they were destined to become the background for Qin Wentian's rise. The new 3 major powers in the City of Ancient Emperors had officially stepped onto the stage, forming a tripartite balance of power. These 3 major powers were respectively Zi Daoyang's Violet Sect, Xie's Evil Palace, and Qin Wentian's Qin Sect. These 3 major powers included the top 5 rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings. This was the first time such a grand event had occurred in the City of Ancient Emperors. Xie establishing the Evil Palace formed a formless pressure on the Qin sect. News had long circulated in the City of Ancient Emperors that Qin Wendian had snatched away the inheritance that should have belonged to Xie. After that, he had joined forces with Namhuang Yunshi and Princess Qing, to injure and force Xie into retreat. Undoubtedly, this had offended Xie to the extreme. Many people guessed that the reason Xie had established the Evil Palace, and had even recruited those people from the Dongshangshan Gate, was precisely because of the Qin sect. At this moment, in the Qin sect, behind the waterfall, there was a beautiful scenery. The main characters of the Qin sect were all here. Qin Wendian, Qing, Namhuang Yunshi, Jun Mingchen, Zi Qingxian, Hua Taishu, Su Rushue, Li Yu, and the others were seated in a circle. Li Yu spoke. Today, there's news that the Evil Palace has already gathered 120 geniuses. Ever since the fight for the inheritance, there's no news of Xie at all. He should have been in closed-door seclusion for a period of time, and now that he has appeared, he immediately made this move. There's a high possibility that he's targeting all of you. Evidently, the Qin sect felt a sense of pressure. Although they were powerful, they weren't invincible in the City of Ancient Emperors. Before this, they could disregard the disciples of the Dongshangshan Gate led by Ke Tianyi. But Xie's existence was something they couldn't ignore. This was especially so now that Xie had established the Evil Palace. Qin Wendian and the others could also sense that the Qin sect was targeting them. Back then, they had injured Xie. Given Xie's personality, he would definitely not let the matter rest so easily. Qin Wendian nodded. He then turned to Namhuang Yunshi and asked, Nanfeng, do you have any thoughts? The Qin sect should continue to recruit disciples. Xie's influence is extremely strong, and I heard that many rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings have joined the Evil Palace, Namhuang Yunshi replied. Seems like the geniuses in the City of Ancient Emperors aren't willing to just be spectators in the storm. They want to have a foot in it as well. Since this is the case, let's expand our recruitment as well. Since a conflict is unavoidable, let's face it head-on. Qin Wendian nodded. Ru Shui, Li Yu, Taishu, I'll leave this matter to the 3 of you. In addition, inform the disciples of the Qin sect to keep a low profile during this period of time. Don't expose yourself so easily. You mean? Li Yu's gaze froze as he stared at Qin Wendian. Although nothing has happened yet, it's still necessary to take precautions. Qin Wendian spoke. Understood. Li Yu nodded. Sect leader. At this moment, a voice drifted over from afar. Qin Wendian directly asked, What's the matter? One of the brothers guarding the underworld mountains sent a message. Zi Daoyang finished his cultivation 2 days ago and obtained the Brahma Heavenly Emperor's inheritance. However, he didn't come out immediately and chose to guard the mountain for 2 days. Today, he finally exited the underworld mountains. That voice drifted over from afar, causing the countenances of the crowd to turn as sharp lights gleamed in their eyes. Zi Daoyang had exited the underworld mountains. He was the number 1 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings, and he had also obtained one of the 9 inheritances of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor. His strength would definitely rise to another level, and the threat he posed would definitely not be any weaker than Emosia. Got it. Thanks for the hard work, Qin Wendian replied. After which, that person departed. Now that Zi Daoyang has exited the underworld mountains, the city of ancient emperors has become even more chaotic. Just like what the people in the city of ancient emperors are saying, a tripartite confrontation is about to take place. Liu spoke. Qin Wendian nodded. That's only natural. Zi Daoyang and Emosia both obtained the Brahma Heavenly Emperor's inheritance, and they're destined to stand against each other. My companion Little Rascal also obtained one of the inheritances. The three major powers are already destined to be enemies. How interesting. I didn't expect that the top 5 rankers of the Immortal Ascension rankings would create such a situation. I'm really filled with anticipation to see who would be the one standing at the peak, laughing arrogantly at the top of the city of ancient emperors. Liu laughed uproariously. He was truly filled with anticipation in his heart. Very swiftly, news circulated around the city of ancient emperors. After Zi Daoyang learned of the strength of the Qin sect and the Evil Palace, he decided to reform the Violet sect and invited the geniuses of the city of ancient emperors to join them. Not long after, another shocking piece of news circulated. The Twin Stars Alliance had officially split up. Xiaoling Yue seemed to know that it would be impossible for her to stand against Qin Wendian and the Qin sect by staying with Xianyang. Hence, she chose to give up on Xianyang and led some of the old members of the Xiao sect to join the Violet sect. In an extremely short period of time, the strength of the Violet sect underwent a transformation. Right now, the busybodies in the city of ancient emperors were all discussing the rankings of the Qin sect, the Violet sect, and the Evil Palace. Who was stronger and who was weaker? Chapter 959. The Violet sect, Evil Palace, Qin sect. These three major powers rose higher and higher, growing stronger and stronger. Just when they were accumulating their strength, in the outskirts of the city of ancient emperors, in the air above the city of ancient emperors, numerous beams of light suddenly shot down from the heavens, rumbling as they landed on the ground. Thunderous booms shook the heavens and earth, as though there was an earthquake. The entire area was filled with dust, so much so that one couldn't even see the silhouettes clearly. After a long time, when the dust finally settled, numerous silhouettes appeared. There were people everywhere, and with a single glance, one could see that there were actually people everywhere. BZZZ, 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 BZZZ. 4 silhouettes shot out consecutively, landing in the air, each standing in a different direction. In an instant, the experts below all flickered and soared into the air, standing behind the 4 silhouettes. In the blink of an eye, 4 terrifying formations were formed. If one were to carefully count, they would discover that each of these 4 camps had a total of 81 people. In total, there were a total of 364 people, and each of them had a cultivation base at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. How terrifying was this? Move out. The 4 in the lead all exuded an extraordinary aura, exuding a powerful aura. One of them spoke, and a moment later, this group of people flew towards the city. Everywhere they passed by, the passers-by all felt their hearts trembling. There were so many experts. Are these people from a major power? A genius asked in a low voice, feeling somewhat bewildered. The city of ancient emperors was different from other places. The people who came here were all descendants of immortal kings and emperors, and it was very rare for a major power to send out all their celestial phenomenon disciples. But there were over 300 people here, and all of them were at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. This was clearly an army of celestial phenomenon ascendants. Evidently, they came here with a purpose. If not, they wouldn't do this. Where did these people come from exactly? They came from the Dongshengshan Gate. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor personally issued a command, summoning all the 9th level ascendants of the Dongshengshan Gate. This command instantly swept through 7 prefectures of the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. The Dongshengshan Gate has been operating in the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures for countless years, and they have many immortal kings, let alone 9th-level ascendants. Among them, the Dongshengshan Gate chose over 300 people and led them to the Emperor Palace where the Dongxing Heaven Emperor resided. As for the 4 people in the lead, their statuses were all extraordinary. They were the personal disciples of paragons under the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, and all of them were at the 9th level of celestial phenomenon. They only had a single purpose in coming to the city of ancient emperors, to kill Qin Wenyin, uprooting the Qin sect from the roots. The rage of an immortal emperor was not something that could be easily endured. And at this moment, Qin Wenyin still had no idea that an army was heading towards the city of ancient emperors to deal with him. He naturally knew of the rage of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, but he didn't expect that the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's rage would come so quickly, directly mobilizing the celestial phenomenon ascendants from the Dongshengshan Gate to enter the city of ancient emperors. In the Qin sect, Qin Wenyin received a piece of news. Little rascal had comprehended the Brahma Heavenly Emperor's inheritance and was already out. Only to see at this moment, Qin Wenyin soared up into the air. He stared at the disciples of the Qin sect and spoke in a clear voice. Disciples of the Qin sect, prepare to move out. As the sound of his voice faded, numerous figures soared up into the air. These were all geniuses of the Qin sect, and they stared at Qin Wenyin with bewilderment in their eyes. They didn't know why Qin Wenyin summoned everyone from the Qin sect. Everyone, prepare for battle. Qin Wenyin spoke. After which, he turned to Qing'er beside him and commanded, Qing'er, take out a spatial treasure and bring the disciples of the Qin sect to the underworld mountains. Immediately. Qing'er lightly nodded her head. With a wave of her hand, a spatial-type treasure appeared. It was a gigantic leaf that contained terrifying spatial energy. Everyone follow me. Qin Wenyin and Qing'er stepped onto the spatial treasure. The geniuses of the Qin sect also stepped onto it, but they still had no idea what was going on. But since Qin Wenyin had mobilized so many people, they could faintly sense that the opponent this time around was either Zi Daoyang's Violet sect or Mo Xie's Evil Palace. Other than these 2 powers, there were no other powers in the city of ancient emperors that could make Qin Wenyin mobilize so many people. Terrifying spatial fluctuations gushed forth, and the gigantic leaf was like a flying boat, directly disappearing from the airspace above the Qin sect, traversing a great distance. Within the underworld mountains, in the passageway between the 2 cavern dwellings, a group of figures could be seen. These people were all from the same power, and the person in the lead was none other than Zi Daoyang. In front of Zi Daoyang, there was an incomparably gigantic and baleful demonic beast. The head of this demonic beast was glowing with a golden light, and its eyes gleamed with a cold light that could freeze the souls of those who saw it. Low growls could be heard coming from its mouth as it stared fixedly at Zi Daoyang. I've already waited for you for a long time. Who would have thought that you would be so powerful the moment you obtain the inheritance? How shocking! However, all of this shall be mine. Zi Daoyang's constellation shone brightly in the sky, resembling the silhouette of a divinity. His entire body circulated with a brilliant light, resembling a picture of a heaven-devouring diagram that could devour all living things. Zi Daoyang lifted his palms and attacked. A gigantic violet palm imprint appeared in the air, shining with divine might. The violet light from the palm imprint illuminated the demonic beast, exuding an unexcelled might. Roar! That powerful demonic beast let out an earth-shattering roar. A divine glow appeared around it, enveloping its gigantic body, making it indestructible. Boom! Zi Daoyang coldly snorted as the violet palm imprint blasted onto the barrier, causing cracks to appear on it. Zi Daoyang coldly snorted as he stepped forward. Stretching out his palm, a gigantic palm of darkness blasted onto the barrier. Boundless runic light circulated within his palm as the energy within the barrier slowly flowed into his body. The members of the Violet sect surrounded the demonic beast, sealing it completely. All of this was for the sake of Zi Daoyang seizing the inheritance of this demonic beast. Zi Daoyang was originally the number 1 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings. How tyrannical was his strength! Not only that, he had also obtained a part of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor's inheritance. If he could obtain another inheritance, his strength would surely grow even stronger. Precisely because of this, Zi Daoyang had made ample preparations during these few days. As soon as there was a commotion in the underworld mountains, he immediately appeared. Within the barrier of light, Little Rascal's howl of rage shook the heavens and earth. He slashed out with his sharp claws, and similarly, intense runic light flashed, capable of devouring the heavens and devouring the earth. The power of the two of them seemed to be able to penetrate through the barrier of light, and it was extremely terrifying. I didn't expect a vile beast like you to be so powerful. If it wasn't for the sake of seizing your inheritance, I would have made you my mount, Zi Daoyang coldly spoke. Zi Daoyang coldly spoke. Lifting his left hand, violet light converged into the form of a violet sword. Divine light flashed in the air, causing the violet sword to contain a sharpness that seemed capable of annihilating everything in its path. Chi-chi. The violet sword slashed out, penetrating through the barrier of light and piercing towards Little Rascal's gigantic body. Little Rascal howled in rage as his other golden claw slammed out, blocking the violet sword. However, the violet sword seemed to be able to penetrate through all defenses, directly piercing into that incomparably tough claw. Fresh blood flowed from Little Rascal's claw as he let out a shrill howl of agony. Bzzz! An intense beam of light flashed as incomparably terrifying spatial fluctuations gushed forth, after which an explosive roar shook the heavens and earth. Release him! As this roar of rage echoed out, a god's palm slashed down from the sky. This was none other than Qin Wentian's all-annihilating god's hand. Zi Daoyang waved his left hand as the violet sword slashed towards the sky, colliding with the god's hand. A terrifying boom rang out as the palm imprint shattered apart. At the same time, the violet sword vanished from sight. Numerous gigantic palm imprints descended from the sky, containing supreme divine might that could suppress everything. Zi Daoyang retreated as he stared at the descending figures in the air. He saw Qin Wenyin standing arrogantly in the air, with the experts of the Qin sect behind him. A terrifying coldness flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Evidently, he wasn't the only one paying attention to the movements in the underworld mountains. He, Zi Daoyang, and Mo Xie, who had yet to reveal himself, should all be paying attention to this place. However, Qin Wenyin didn't expect Zi Daoyang to be so fast. He must have used some sort of treasure. During the period of time I obtained the inheritance of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor, I heard that your fame has soared in the city of ancient emperors, and that you established the Qin sect. However, does this give you the confidence to contend against me? Zi Daoyang exuded an incomparably arrogant aura. He was the top ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, and no one could contend against him. Roar! Little Rascal roared at him. After which, it soared up into the air, landing beside Qin Wenyin as it coldly stared at Zi Daoyang. This vile beast is truly not bad. I can't even bear to kill it, Zi Daoyang faintly spoke. Nan Feng and Qing Er are here as well. Qing Er's countenance turned cold as she icily replied, I don't know you. In the future, when I go and meet Uncle Evergreen, little sister Qing Er will naturally recognize me. Zi Daoyang continued, Qin Wenyin, on account of little sister Qing Er, I don't wish to make things difficult for you. You guys can leave first. This demonic beast is mine for sure. With me here, it's impossible, Qin Wendian replied. Do you really think you can obstruct me? Leaving aside the fact that you're only at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon, so what if you're at the 9th level? Even if you're ranked number 4, the disparity between you and the top ranker is still something you can't imagine. Zi Daoyang's body glowed with a powerful violet light as his aura surged to the extreme. His divinity-like constellation shone with a surging violet light. This is Zidi's ultimate violet saint immortal art. It contains boundless might, allowing one's attacks to reach the pinnacle, possessing the strongest attack power. It's one of Zidi's 2 ultimate arts. Nam Huang Yunxi transmitted her voice to Qin Wenyin, as though reminding Qin Wenyin to treat this seriously. As the sound of her voice faded, she and Qing Er walked to the side of Qin Wenyin, wanting to fight alongside Qin Wenyin. Back then, The three of them had joined forces to injure Emosia. Zi Daoyang's strength wasn't inferior to Emosia's, but as for how strong he was now, they would only know after they fought. Chapter 960. Zi Daoyang stared at the three before him. After which, his eyes landed on Qing Er as he spoke. Little sister Qing Er, if I fight against you, how am I going to explain this to Uncle Evergreen when I meet him in the future? Qing Er's countenance was ice cold. She ignored Zi Daoyang. However, Zi Daoyang then turned to Qin Wenyin. Don't you feel any shame for doing this? When I entered the city of ancient emperors, you were already the #1 ranker on the Immortal Ascension rankings. But at that time, I was only at the 7th level of Celestial Phenomenon. You proclaim yourself to be unrivaled in the city of ancient emperors. Could it be that you want me to fight you one-on-one? Qin Wenyin stared at Zi Daoyang as he spoke. After I break through to the 9th level of Celestial Phenomenon, I will naturally have a fair battle with you. Zi Daoyang laughed in disdain. After which, he spoke. Lingyue, bring a few people to restrain Qing Er. I don't wish to fight against her. Leave Qin Wenyin and the Southern Phoenix sect to me. When I wasn't around, I heard that the Qin sect dared to claim to be the #1 sect in the city of ancient emperors. Now that my Violet sect is here, let's show everyone who is the #1 sect in the city of ancient emperors. As the sound of his voice faded, those from the Violet sect and the Qin sect all unleashed their terrifying auras. In just an instant, a terrifying tempest engulfed the area, as though a chaotic battle was about to take place. The violet light radiating from Zi Daoyang illuminated the skies. The boundless violet light transformed into an indomitable sharp sword that abruptly slashed out. This violet sword seemed to contain the strongest attack power, capable of annihilating everything. It was truly indomitable as it slashed down at the center of Qin Wenyin and Qin Wenyin and Qing Er dodged to the sides. Zi Daoyang stepped out and blasted out with his palms. Boundless violet light transformed into a towering palm imprint, causing the heavens and earth to rumble. That violet palm imprint was incomparably indestructible, as though it contained the strongest attack power in the world. Qin Wentian's body rumbled as it expanded in size. His entire body circulated with a dazzling luster, as though there were countless runic inscriptions circulating around him. Taking a step out, it was as though he had a supreme physique, possessing the power to suppress everything. His constellation enveloped his entire body as a terrifying light radiated from him. Yet in front of the violet palm imprint, it couldn't even withstand a single strike. Boom! Qin Wentian's god's hand blasted out, containing a heaven-shaking might within as it collided with the violet palm imprint. The two forces intersected, causing many to turn their gazes over. The ultimate Violet Saint Immortal art was said to be a supremely powerful attack, while God's Hand was an ultimate art created by ancient Emperor. This was a clash of the strongest attacks. A thunderous boom rang out as the palm imprint shattered apart. The hearts of the spectators trembled. Seems like the power of ancient Emperor Yi's ultimate art, God's Hand, was still stronger than Qin Wenyin. The reason why their attacks were on par was because Zi Daoyang's cultivation base was a notch higher compared to Qin Wenyin. On the other side, Xiao Lingyue led her people to block Qing Er. 4 experts surrounded Qing Er and fought against her, isolating her from Qin Wenyin. Namhuang Yunxi appeared beside Qin Wenyin. Her entire body was bathed in the shadow of the ancient phoenix, emitting a brilliant red glow. She stabbed out with her finger, causing the cry of a fire phoenix to echo out as it shot towards Zi Daoyang. Zi Daoyang coldly snorted. His constellation shone with boundless light as he stabbed out with his finger. A moment later, a screen of light appeared in the air, containing a supreme might that swallowed the fire phoenix. Go back! Zi Daoyang coldly snorted. With a towering roar, the fire phoenix retreated, flying towards Qin Wenyin and Namhuang Yunxi. Namhuang Yunxi's countenance changed. She stabbed out with her finger as another fire phoenix manifested. The two phoenixes collided in the air, emitting shrill screeches as they exploded simultaneously. Today, being able to experience ZD's two ultimate arts, the ultimate Violet Saint Immortal art and the Thousand Autumns Emperor's art, is truly an incomparably honor. Nam Huang Yunshi spoke. The ultimate Violet Saint Immortal art was an invincible attack, while the Thousand Autumns Emperor's art was extremely miraculous. Not only could it defend against powerful attacks, it could even convert them into its own. This was even more miraculous compared to the Xian Emperor's heavenly mystic mirror art. Hence, Xian Yang wasn't even worthy of a mention in front of Zi Daoyang. Naturally, when compared to the Xian Emperor, ZD wasn't a character on the same level. ZD was a peak-level immortal emperor in the immortal realms. Nan Feng, ordinary attacks are completely useless against me. The two of you aren't my match, Zi Daoyang spoke arrogantly. After that, he stepped out and spoke in a cold voice, "None of you can obstruct me." As the sound of his voice faded, violet qi towered up into the sky. Boundless violet light gushed forth, converging on Zi Daoyang. It was as though the violet qi had descended from the east. A supreme might gushed forth from Zi Daoyang as he blasted out with his palms. An incomparably gigantic violet palm manifested, capable of annihilating everything in its path. Qin Wendian unleashed his strength to the extreme. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as his body expanded in size once more. The divine energy in his body seethed as God's hand once again blasted out, blotting out the sky. It collided with the gigantic violet palm imprint in the air, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. However, it seemed as though the two gigantic palm imprints wouldn't shatter at all. Zi Daoyang laughed in disdain. I wonder if the Brahma Heavenly Emperor's inheritance would be able to devour the power of God's hand as well. As the sound of his voice faded, layers of terrifying black runic light circulated around his gigantic violet palm, transforming into a fearsome vortex that sucked in the power of God's hand. That gigantic violet palm seemed to transform into an abyss as God's hand sank in bit by bit, wanting to devour Qin Wendian's entire arm. Zi Daoyang's eyes flashed with a dazzling light. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar rang out as a gigantic baleful demonic beast lunged over, its sharp claws grabbing out at Zi Daoyang's head. That invincible might made people feel that if Zi Daoyang's head was struck by it, it would instantly explode. It was simply too terrifying. Zi Daoyang coldly laughed. Stretching out his left hand, he made a grabbing motion in the air. A gigantic violet palm descended from the skies, transforming into a prison that directly locked the body of the gigantic demonic beast in the air. However, the gigantic demonic beast opened its jaws wide and bit down, devouring the violet palm imprint. Nam Huang Yunshi's body became incomparably beautiful. She was bathed in boundless flames as she slowly walked towards Zi Daoyang. Her silhouette flickered like an ancient phoenix, and a phoenix sword slashed down, tearing apart the sky as a red beam of light shot down from the heavens. It's useless. Zi Daoyang roared. His Thousand Autumns Emperor's art was unleashed as boundless light appeared before him. The phoenix sword slashed onto the light screen, imprinting an incomparably resplendent runic light onto it. Go! Zi Daoyang roared. The imprinted sword slashed out, aiming for Nam Huang Yunshi, using Nam Huang Yunshi's own attack to deal with her. Thousand Autumns Emperor's art. Nam Huang Yunshi's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. She once again used the same attack to destroy the energy she blasted out. She had the ability to break through Xian Yang's heavenly mystic mirror art, hence she was ranked number 3 in the Immortal Ascension rankings. Xian Yang was only ranked number 4, but against Zi Daoyang, who was ranked number 1, Nam Huang Yunshi clearly found it extremely taxing. This fellow is so powerful. Jun Mengchen, Hua Taishu and Zi Qingxian joined forces. Right now, their cultivation bases were the same, at the 8th level of celestial phenomenon, but their combat prowess was extremely terrifying. This was especially so when they joined forces. Even an ordinary 9th level ascendant would be swiftly suppressed by them. But although they were powerful, they were still far from sufficient to deal with characters of Zi Daoyang's level. Being able to rank number 1 in the City of Ancient Emperors, Zi Daoyang could already be considered one of the most supreme geniuses in the entire immortal realms. He's indeed very powerful. His offense and defense are simply unfathomable, and now he even obtained an inheritance of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor. Zi Qingxian spoke in a low voice. The experts of the Qin sect and the Violet sect had already erupted into a great battle. The area outside the cavern of the two ancient emperors had become a battlefield, with violent currents of qi churning about. And at this moment, in another location in the distance, a group of experts similarly arrived. These experts all exuded a cold aura, as though they were all ruthless characters. The young man in the lead had a pair of dark golden eyes that seemed capable of penetrating through space. He quietly stood on the mountain peak with his hands clasped behind his back. "Palace Lord, are we still not going to kill our way over?" someone asked the young man in the lead. "There's no rush. The strength of the Qin sect isn't weak. Qin Wenyan, Nam Huang Yunxi and Qing are all extremely powerful. Even if Zi Daoyang wanted to capture them, he would have to pay a price. Just wait and see," Emosia emotionlessly spoke. After which, his dark golden eyes closed as if he, Emosia, had nothing to do with this matter. Behind Emosia stood the experts of the evil palace he'd established. These people were all prepared for a great battle at any moment, and they were prepared to engage in a grand battle. The battle in the underworld mountains was extremely sudden. The moment Little Rascal appeared, the battle had already erupted. Zi Daoyang led the experts of the Violet sect, while Qin Wenyan led the experts of the Qin sect. The people of the city of ancient emperors didn't even know of this, and only now did the news of this battle gradually spread out. The experts of the Violet sect, Qin sect, and Evil Palace had all vanished, all heading towards the underworld mountains. It seemed like the most powerful battle in the entire city of ancient emperors would erupt there. For a period of time, the wind and clouds churned as experts from all directions headed towards the underworld mountains. In the city of ancient emperors, over 300 experts were heading towards the location of the Qin sect, attracting the attention of many. They rode on their speed-type treasures and arrived at the Qin sect, only to discover that there wasn't a single person in the Qin sect. It was completely empty. "Not here." The four people in the lead frowned. Their gazes swept over to the geniuses in the distance as they roared, "Stop right there." That genius inclined his head and stared at the experts in the air as his heart trembled. Where did the people of the Qin sect go? A voice rang out in the air. That person's eyes flickered as he replied, "There seems to be a huge commotion in the underworld mountains. Qin Wenyan might have led the people of the Qin sect to the underworld mountains." "Come up and lead the way," the expert in the air coldly commanded. That expert in the air coldly spoke. That person's countenance stiffened. After that, he could sense an overwhelming might gushing towards him. He could only nod his head, "Fine." After speaking, he soared up into the air, but in his heart, he was silently speculating which power these people belonged to. Chapter 961. In the underworld mountain battlefield, Zi Daoyang was fighting against Qin Wenyan, Nam Huang Yunxi, and Little Rascal. The experts of the Qin sect were fighting against the experts of the Violet sect. Mountains crumbled unceasingly, and cracks appeared on the ground. Thunderous booms rang out, shaking the heavens and earth. Zi Daoyang and the others were in the center of the battlefield. The violet palm imprint clashed against Qin Wentian's God's hand, wanting to engulf the power of God's hand into the abyss of darkness. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with a terrifying light. Runic light radiated from his body, intertwining together to form a divine body that possessed the power to annihilate everything. His surging aura was like a divine might, and a multicolored light flashed, coiling around him. An even more terrifying power erupted forth from him, frenziedly enveloping Zi Daoyang. Qin Wenyan lifted his left hand and blasted out, wanting to destroy everything with a single punch. Zi Daoyang coldly snorted. The violet palm imprint abruptly separated from Qin Wentian's God's hand. Boundless violet light transformed into an ancient violet cauldron that blasted out. The sound of the cauldron reverberated through the air, shattering the attack. Roar! Little Rascal roared in rage, his voice shaking the heavens and earth. His entire body seemed to be clad in a king's armor, and resplendent runes interweaved on his sharp claws as he abruptly blasted out, forcing Zi Daoyang back. You do have some strength. Zi Daoyang retreated 1,000 meters away and stared ahead. Stretching out his hands, boundless violet light converged into a gigantic cauldron that was so heavy that it could crush everything. The ancient cauldrons were inscribed with countless runic inscriptions, and violet light cascaded down from them. It was as though they contained a supreme power that could crush everything in their path. Careful! Namhuang Yunshi spoke in a low voice. Zi Daoyang's attacks had always been extremely terrifying. Now that he was truly enraged, his attacks would definitely be even more terrifying. Rumble! Qin Wentian's body expanded once more. This time around, his body grew to over 100 meters, even larger than the gigantic cauldron. In addition to the unexcelled runic light circulating around his body, he was like a true existence that could shock the world. He was like a divinity that descended from the ancient world. His eyes were incomparably demonic, containing an inextinguishable flame. His gaze swept over the battlefield. He saw the experts from the Violet sect fighting against the Qin sect. Shaolin Yue was leading a group of geniuses to pin down Qin. His god's hand continued to transform, and on his gigantic palm, a heavenly hammer formed from incomparably complicated runic inscriptions appeared. A boundless suppressive light radiated forth, as though a boundless might was channeled into the heavenly hammer in his palm. Qin, get out of the way! Qin Wentian roared. An instant later, an intense spatial energy radiated from Qin, enveloping her. The two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding. Qin Wentian lifted his heavenly hammer and abruptly smashed it down in a certain direction. At this moment, Qin Wentian's physique was incomparably gigantic. With the heavenly hammer in his hand, he smashed down, covering the entire battlefield. As long as he willed it, he could attack anywhere he wanted. At the instant the heavenly hammer slammed down, Shaolin Yue and the other geniuses all felt a chaotic torrent of energy gushing forth, enveloping the entire space. Shaolin Yue inclined her head only to see the heavenly hammer blotting out the sun. It contained an immortal might that transformed into law energy, causing her countenance to turn pale. How terrifying was the power of this strike! With a loud roar, boundless frost energy gushed forth from Shaolin Yue, sealing everything in ice. With her at the center, the entire space around her was about to be frozen. Frost unceasingly extended up into the sky, and at the same time, the light of law energy also shot up into the sky. Not only her, the geniuses around her all unleashed their strongest attacks at the same time, blasting them up into the air. However, when the heavenly hammer slammed down, everyone only saw the power of their attacks shattering apart. When one's strength reached an extreme, it could destroy everything. Let alone the fact that the heavenly hammer didn't only contain tyrannical strength, it also contained an incomparably terrifying suppressive might. Not only that, the heavenly hammer was shrouded in a pure white holy light, capable of destroying everything in its path. Zi Daoyang's countenance stiffened when he saw this scene. His silhouette abruptly dashed out like a bolt of lightning. Numerous violet cauldrons blasted out, all of them exuding an unexcelled might as they collided with the descending heavenly hammer. The countenances of Shaolin Yue and the others turned pale. Just as the heavenly hammer was about to smash down, numerous violet cauldrons appeared, colliding against the terrifying heavenly hammer. A heaven-shaking explosion rang out, so loud that even the eardrums of the spectators were in pain. Several beams of light appeared in the sky, slamming into the earth with the speed of lightning. Sizzling sounds rang out as numerous fissures appeared on the ground. Those violet cauldrons were all destroyed, and Qin Wentian's heavenly hammer was also forced back. The light from the god's hand that was holding onto the heavenly hammer trembled intensely. Qin Er's silhouette flickered as she appeared beside Qin Wentian, radiating terrifying spatial fluctuations. Not only that, There seemed to be a mysterious energy enveloping Qing Er's body. Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon. Zi Daoyang could sense the might radiating from Qing. He stared at Qing Er and spoke. Qing Er, there's no way for you to control this cultivation art now. Every time you use it, you will have to endure immense pain. I don't have the heart to fight against you. Why must you use the Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon to fight against me? Qin Wentian's large eyes flashed with a strange light. He lowered his head and stared at Qing Er below. In the previous battle, Qing Er had also used the Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon, causing her strength to surge explosively. Only after the three of them joined forces did they manage to injure Emosia. But according to what Zi Daoyang said, Qing Er's usage of the Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon would actually injure herself? Qing Er sensed Qin Wentian's gaze. She inclined her head and stared at Qing. Her eyes were clear as crystal, and she faintly replied, "It's fine." Nanfeng. Qin Wentian knew that Qing wouldn't admit to it. He involuntarily turned his gaze to Qing. The Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon is an ultimate art of the Chongqing the Great. It's extremely mysterious, and it's rumored that activating the Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon would cause one's strength to surge explosively. As for the side effects, I've never heard of it before. After all, only those closest to the Chongqing the Great understand the Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon. Namhuang Yunxi transmitted her voice over. You're right. Uncle Chongqing views my father as an elder brother. I naturally know what kind of cultivation art the Azure Lotus Sacred Cannon is, Zi Daoyang spoke. He stared at Qin Wenin. You aren't worthy for Qing Er to fight for you. Qin Wentian's large eyes flickered with a hint of gentleness as well as guilt. Was this really the case? It's really fine. Qing Er revealed a rare smile when she looked at Qin Wenin. That gentle smile in her eyes seemed to contain boundless emotions. Namhuang Yunxi, who was at the side, couldn't help but feel moved in her heart when she saw this scene. She didn't know what story the daughter of the Chongqing the Great, Princess Qing Er, had experienced exactly with Qin Wenin. But one thing was certain, their relationship must be extremely deep. Nanfeng, Qing Er, little rascal, the three of you surround him. I'll control the entire battlefield. No one will be able to interfere with your battle. Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at Zi Daoyang, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying coldness. The might of his constellation could suppress the heavens as numerous divine-like figures radiated boundless light. At the same time, an incomparably terrifying sword might radiated from Qin Wentian's left hand. The sword Slaughter constellation appeared in the air above his left hand, and a gigantic sword that could annihilate everything appeared in his left hand. With a heavenly hammer in his right hand and a gigantic sword in his left, boundless runic light circulated around his body, as though he had already forged a marvelous physique. Right now, Qin Wenin had transformed into a true god of war, able to multitask. Every step he took caused the earth to tremble as cracks unceasingly extended out in all directions. The members of the Violet sect and Qin sect, who were in the midst of battle, glanced at Qin Wenin as shock filled their hearts. What sort of character was this Qin Wenin exactly? It was as though he always had an inexhaustible number of trump cards. Right now, he was like a god of war that had descended from the heavens. The terrifying aura radiating from him seemed to be able to sweep away everything. I'll fight with you. Namhuang Yunxi spoke. After which, a red light shot up into the sky as the silhouette of an ancient phoenix radiated from her body. A mysterious and ancient aura gushed forth from her, causing her aura to grow stronger and stronger. The red light expanded unceasingly, wanting to blot out the sun, engulfing everything in its path. Namhuang Yunxi stepped out, standing in the air as her aura continued to soar. As the number 3 ranker in the Immortal Ascension rankings, Namhuang Yunxi had never displayed a strength that could contend against Zi Daoyang. In fact, she was far from being able to match up to Zi Daoyang. However, those who truly understood the Namhuang clan would know that Namhuang Yunxi wasn't in her strongest state. The rankings of the Immortal Ascension rankings were based on combat prowess. After Qin Wendian and Qing'er displayed their incomparably tyrannical strength, they were still ranked number 4 and number 5 respectively. Namhuang Yunxi was still the number 3 ranker. This wasn't a random ranking, it was a recognition of Namhuang Yunxi's strength. Boom! A deafening sound rang out as the entire sky changed color. Namhuang Yunxi seemed to be in an independent world. Red light enveloped the heavens and earth as numerous ancient phoenixes cried out in unison. A resplendent glow circulated around her body, resembling a phoenix armor, causing Namhuang Yunxi to appear incomparably holy. Nanfeng, you actually want to make an enemy out of me as well? You even used the ultimate arts of the Namhuang clan as well as the power of your phoenix blood to fight against me. Zi Daoyang's expression sank as he stared at the numerous powerful opponents before him. The number 3, number 4 and number 5 rankers on the Immortal Ascension rankings were in their most powerful combat forms. In addition, there was also a powerful demonic beast. The terrifying might radiating from them instantly suppressed Zi Daoyang's aura. There seemed to be no chance of victory in this battle. At the very least, this was the case for this battlefield. It's not honorable to join forces against you. However, you are the number 1 ranker in the Immortal Ascension rankings, and your strength is truly stronger than mine. If you retreat, my Qin sect is willing to call a truce. Namhuang Yunxi spoke. Although she was incomparably powerful, she was magnanimous and was willing to admit that her strength was inferior to Zi Daoyang's. If the two of them fought one-on-one, the loser would definitely be her. But things were different now. The three of them were fighting in their most powerful combat forms, and the loser would definitely be Zi Daoyang. Chapter 962. Zi Daoyang could sense the auras of the 3 experts in front of him, as well as the berserk demonic beast. He could faintly sense that there was a high possibility that he would lose this battle. However, did he really have to give up on this battle and leave? He was Zi Daoyang, the son of Zidi, the number 1 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings. There was no one who could surpass him, yet he wanted him to give up on this battle? I'm willing to accompany you in this battle, Zi Daoyang coldly stated. Zi Daoyang had his own pride, the pride of being the number 1 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings. Earlier, he was the first to arrive at the Underworld Mountains. If he had borrowed the power of a powerful divine weapon, he would have long since subdued Little Rascal. However, he didn't. As the number 1 ranker of the City of Ancient Emperors, he was confident that he could rely on his own strength to defeat Little Rascal. This wasn't foolishness, it was the pride of being the number 1 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings. Most of the top-notch geniuses had their own pride. Qing'er, Namhuang Yunxi, and Little Rascal respectively took their positions, surrounding Zi Daoyang. Qin Wendian's gigantic body stood there proudly, controlling the entire battlefield. Fight! Zi Daoyang roared. Violet light towered up into the sky, converging into a violet palm imprint that blasted out, aiming for Little Rascal. However, Little Rascal's sharp claws slammed out, and boundless runic light flashed. The claws seemed to contain an incomparably terrifying might, and directly slammed into the violet palm imprint, destroying it. A lotus light screen shone on Zi Daoyang's body as boundless spatial energy cascaded downwards, enveloping him. Qing'er's countenance was ice cold. She stabbed out with a finger, manifesting boundless spatial swords that directly pierced through the air. Zi Daoyang waved his hands as his divine-like constellation shone with the resplendent light. He circulated the Thousand Autumns Emperor art, and Qing'er's killing energy slammed into the formless light screen, imprinting runes on it. After which, the spatial swords directly shot back towards Qing'er. Ordinary attacks are useless against Zi Daoyang. His Thousand Autumns Emperor art can directly reflect them back. Nanfeng Yunxi spoke. Right now, she was perfect and flawless, incomparably holy. Behind her, numerous ancient phoenixes let out shrill cries, and abruptly, a supreme beam of light soared up into the sky, transforming into a beam of fiery light that could annihilate everything. It directly blasted out from her, blasting towards Zi Daoyang. The beam of fiery light that could incinerate everything slammed into Zi Daoyang. Zi Daoyang's countenance changed. A violet shield abruptly appeared in front of him, seemingly indestructible. However, the beams of light transformed into numerous phoenix swords that slashed down frenziedly. The violet shield bore the brunt of the destructive might of the blazing flames as it gradually turned red. After which, a deafening sound echoed out as the violet shield completely exploded. How powerful! This kind of attack is too terrifying. Those flames that can incinerate everything are like sharp phoenix swords, containing the power to incinerate everything. Nanfeng Yunqi, with just a single attack, can already defeat countless geniuses in the city of ancient emperors. The hearts of the spectators trembled when they saw this attack. Zi Daoyang circulated his ultimate Violet Saint immortal art to the limits, borrowing the power of the heavens. Violet Qi rose from the east, and his entire person was shrouded in violet light. He stretched out his palm, manifesting an incomparably terrifying violet palm imprint that blasted towards Namhuang Yunqi's blazing flames. The two of them collided violently, and the violet palm imprint pushed forth, wanting to blast towards Namhuang Yunqi. Qin Wentian's terrifying god's hand once again smashed downwards, shaking the heavens and earth. The light from the suppressive annihilation constellation cascaded onto the god's hand, causing an incomparably heavy pressure to bear down on the god's hand. Zi Daoyang lifted his other hand and blasted it towards the heavens, covering the sky with a single palm. Rumble! An earth-shattering boom rang out as the attacks of the two collided together. Even the earth was trembling from the impact. The power of the collision was too terrifying. In the air, the golden silhouettes that seemed capable of suppressing everything descended, guarding the space above Zi Daoyang. Beams of light intertwined, forming a dazzling diagram in the air. Zi Daoyang inclined his head, and could faintly sense a terrifying energy congregating above his head. "Go over and help," Xiao Lingyue coldly commanded. Xiao Lingyue coldly snorted. She could sense Zi Daoyang's current predicament. The combined might of four powerful experts was simply too overwhelming. Even Zi Daoyang would find it hard to defend against them. She led several experts and rushed out, only to see the gigantic sword in Qin Wentian's left hand directly slashing towards Xiao Lingyue. A beam of sword light slashed down, causing Xiao Lingyue's countenance to drastically change. She retreated, staring at the gigantic body of Zi Daoyang. It was as though she wanted to use the gigantic sword in her left hand to isolate Zi Daoyang from the battlefield, preventing others from interfering. Zi Daoyang roared. His body soared up into the air, only to see Qin Wentian's heavenly hammer smashing down once more, bringing with it a towering runic light. It was like the hammer of a divinity, containing the might of a war god. Zi Daoyang's body was forcefully smashed back. Although Qin Wentian's violent attacks weren't strong enough to injure Zi Daoyang still couldn't break free from this predicament. He was actually trapped here. Namhuang Yunqi stepped forward. Her ancient phoenix shadow slashed out frenziedly. Numerous phoenix shadows slashed out, containing a heaven-shaking might that could shake the heavens and earth. Qing Er's immortal slaying diagram was unleashed, capable of annihilating everything as it swept towards Zi Daoyang. Little Rascal's body was like a bolt of lightning, occasionally rushing in front of Zi Daoyang and abruptly unleashing an attack. The golden silhouette manifested an incomparably terrifying picture scroll. Zi Daoyang only felt that the power of his constellation was being sealed. The runes of light cascading down from the heavens cascaded down onto his constellation, as well as his body. This caused him to feel as though he was shouldering the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, and a sense of helplessness welled up in him. Zi Daoyang can't hold on any longer, he's going to be defeated. The people from the Violet sect and Qin sect felt their hearts trembling when they saw this scene. If it was a one-on-one fight, none of Qin Wentian's group would be a match for the number 1 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings, Zi Daoyang. But if they joined forces, Mo Xie had been injured back then. And now, Zi Daoyang seemed to be on the same level. This can't go on. Zi Daoyang was trapped by the attacks of 4 experts. The power cascading down from the heavens seemed to be able to seal his combat prowess. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Zi Daoyang's eyes turned violet as he stared at Little Rascal's gigantic body. Abruptly, he directly gave up on defending against the attacks from all directions. Just as Little Rascal was about to rush towards him, he dashed out with extreme decisiveness. Boom! Namhuang Yunshi's attack directly blasted onto Zi Daoyang's body. His entire body was enveloped in violet light, yet he still groaned in pain from the impact. Qing Er's attack similarly slashed down on his body, tearing apart the layers of protective light. However, at this moment, Zi Daoyang didn't seem to care at all. His palms blasted out as violet runic light illuminated the heavens, grabbing towards Qing. Another thunderous boom rang out. Little Rascal's attack was shattered. The gigantic palm covered in violet runic light directly grabbed onto Little Rascal's body. A terrifying black light flashed, transforming into a vortex that frenziedly sucked in the energy within Little Rascal's body. Let go! Qin Wentian's heavenly hammer smashed over. Zi Daoyang lifted his palms and retaliated, yet the heavenly hammer directly shattered it and slammed into Zi Daoyang's body, causing him to cough out a mouthful of blood. However, his palms still held onto Little Rascal tightly. Even though Little Rascal had fallen to the ground, he didn't let it go. Inclining his head, his violet eyes stared at Qin Wenyin in the air, as a terrifying will could be seen flickering within them. With a cough, Zi Daoyang coughed out a few more mouthfuls of blood. Evidently, that attack had caused him to be heavily injured. Roar, roar! Little Rascal let out a heaven-shaking roar. Qin Wentian's countenance turned ashen. The heavenly hammer in his hands vanished as he pressed his finger downwards. The god's hand blazed with flames, resembling a divine sword that could devour the light of the heavens and earth, capable of killing everything in the world. His finger pressed downwards, aiming for Zi Daoyang. At this moment, Zi Daoyang's countenance changed. A terrifying energy circulated in the air, breaking through the immortal might. Zi Daoyang mustered all his strength and gave up on Little Rascal. Both his palms blasted out towards the sky as the energy in his body resonated. It was as though a violet-colored divinity had appeared in the form of that finger. Puchi! A beam of light flashed as the god's hand was destroyed. Zi Daoyang's attack was completely shattered by the sword might of that finger. At the same time, the sword slammed into his body, shattering the violet-colored divinity's silhouette, as well as his violet-colored defensive physique. Borrowing the power of the rebound, Zi Daoyang frantically retreated. Terrifying fissures appeared on the ground, but even so, a bloody wound still appeared on Zi Daoyang's body. Fresh blood flowed from his wounds as a wave of destructive energy gushed into his body, containing a heaven-shaking sword might. Qin Wentian's body returned to its normal size. The god's hand vanished, and his aura fluctuated. However, his spirit was still fighting. Right now, by borrowing the power of the god's hand, he was actually able to unleash the might of the immortal vanquishing swordplay. However, the amplification wasn't as shocking as before, allowing him to jump levels to kill his enemies. Right now, he was at the boundary between mortal and immortal. This strike had heavily injured Zi Daoyang, the #1 ranker of the Immortal Ascension rankings. Kill your way over. The experts of the Violet sect rushed over. The geniuses of the Qin sect naturally resisted, and the battle between the two sides continued without end. Many experts were injured. Zi Daoyang took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. His violet eyes stared at Qin Wenyin. In the city of ancient emperors, this was the first time he had suffered such a huge disadvantage. At this moment, a vast aura gushed over from afar. The gazes of everyone turned in that direction, and their eyes narrowed. Zi Daoyang wasn't surprised by the situation. He stared at Emosie's approaching silhouette as a cold light flashed in his eyes. I initially thought that I would be able to win this battle directly, and I didn't even bother to play any tricks. Who would have thought that I would be injured here? Zi Daoyang naturally expected that Emosie would appear. Since he hadn't appeared until now, There was only a possibility that he was waiting for an opportunity. Emosia had always been ruthless, and was extremely dangerous. Right now, both the Violet sect and the Qin sect were exhausted, yet Zi Daoyang had failed to defeat Qin Wenyin and the others. Now that Emosia had led the experts of the Evil Palace over, he undoubtedly had the upper hand. Chapter 963. Emosia's dark golden eyes stared at Zi Daoyang. The two of them had also obtained one of the 9 inheritances of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor. They both understood that this was insufficient to unleash the invincibility of the Brahma Heavenly Emperor in the immortal realms. Only by continuously absorbing the power of the inheritances would they be able to grow stronger. Hence, a battle was destined between Zi Daoyang and Emosia. It was just that right now, neither of them had any thoughts of fighting head-on. Their priority now was to seize the demonic beast beside Qin Wenyin, as well as Zhan Peng's inheritance. Since you're injured, just leave this place. Emosia glanced at Zi Daoyang. His dark golden eyes gleamed with a cold light, giving off an extremely dangerous aura. His aura gushed forth, resembling a devil as darkness tribulation energy circulated around him. His eyes were filled with coldness. Those from the Violet sect, retreat with me. Zi Daoyang was also an extremely decisive person. With a wave of his hand, the geniuses of the Violet sect gathered together and retreated, opening up the battlefield. Daoyang Gij. Xiao Lingyue stood beside Zi Daoyang as she asked in a low voice, "Are we going to give up just like that? I've underestimated the others. Even if I didn't obtain the inheritance, I only have myself to blame. If I continue to participate, Emosia might even act against our Violet sect. Why don't we just let them fight it out?" Zi Daoyang slowly spoke, "Emosia and I will have a battle sooner or later. Both our inheritances shall belong to one person." The experts from the Evil Palace surrounded the geniuses of the Qin sect. Emosia's eyes turned to Qin Wendian, only to see that the god's hand had already been destroyed. Earlier, he had used the immortal vanquishing swordplay to heavily injure Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyan's combat prowess had already been weakened, and that demonic beast was also injured by Zi Daoyang. Emosia's main opponents were only Qin and Namhuang Yunxi. "Qin Wenyin, the situation is not good for us. We should consider retreating." Namhuang Yunxi transmitted her voice to Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin silently nodded his head. The situation was indeed getting more and more disadvantageous for them. The battle with the Violet sect had already caused them to suffer severe injuries, and now, the Evil Palace had arrived as well. With Emosia and the Evil Palace at their peak, they had the absolute advantage. "People from Dongshengshan Gate, I let you off last time, but you didn't listen to my advice and joined the Evil Palace." Qin Wenyin turned his gaze onto Gusu Tianqi and the others as a cold light flickered in his eyes. His gaze was so cold that it actually caused the experts of the Dongshengshan Gate to feel a sense of pressure. Fear could be seen in their eyes. Back then when Kei Tianyi was killed, fear still lingered in their hearts. "I recruited them into the Evil Palace to give them a chance to take revenge." Emosia spoke with cold arrogance, pointing his finger at Little Rascal. "Hand that vile beast over to me and I can spare you all this time." A low-sounding roar rang out from Little Rascal's mouth as a baleful light flashed in its eyes. "Dream on." Qin Wenyin icily spoke. "Since this is the case, I shall act myself then." Emosia's constellation flashed as Calamity Demon appeared in the air. He stabbed out with his finger, causing a dark golden tribulation light to erupt forth, containing boundless might. It was akin to a terrifying dark golden flood dragon, rushing towards the experts of the Qin sect. Every single attack contained a fearsome destructive might. Behind Nanfeng Yunxi, an ancient phoenix let out a long cry. Numerous phoenixes flapped their wings as a towering red light erupted forth. Numerous fiery phoenixes rushed out, clashing against the dark golden flood dragon, causing earth-shattering rumbling sounds to echo out. Zi Daoyang retreated from afar and watched the battle, but he didn't leave immediately. At this moment, Zi Daoyang's eyes suddenly turned as he stared behind him. His eyes abruptly gleamed with sharpness, only to see that over there, a vast army was actually rushing over, exuding an intense baleful aura. Since when did such a power appear in the city of ancient emperors? Zi Daoyang stared at Xiaolingyue. Could this be a power that appeared when he comprehended the Brahma heavenly emperor's inheritance? Nope. Xiaolingyue shook her head. She didn't understand as well. At this moment, the experts of the evil palace and Qin sect who were about to engage in battle also halted. Mo Xie's eyes flickered with a cold light as he glanced over. It's the experts from the immortal sects. Our reinforcements have arrived. At this moment, an expert from the Dongshengshan Gate exclaimed in shock. Gusu Tianqi's eyes flickered. He also discovered that the Dongshengshan Gate's army had arrived. There were over 300 of them, and all of them were from the Dongshengshan Gate. Was this an order from his master, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor? If not, it was impossible for such a powerful force to be dispatched to the city of ancient emperors. People from the Dongshengshan Gate? Everyone soon reacted, as their gazes all landed on Qin Wenyin. Back then, Qin Wenyin had killed the disciple of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, Ke Tianyi, in front of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. It seemed like the people from the Dongshengshan Gate were here for revenge. Back then, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor had truly lost a great deal of face. Seems like this immortal emperor couldn't swallow this humiliation, to think that he was actually humiliated by a junior. Seems like His Majesty has given the order. We can regroup and take revenge now. From within the evil palace, an expert from the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect stepped out, wanting to join up with the other geniuses from the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect. However, he only saw Mo Xie grabbing out with his dark golden claws, directly grabbing onto his neck. Mo Xie coldly spoke, "You've already joined my evil palace, yet you actually betrayed me?" Mo Xie, I'm originally from the Dongshengshan Gate. That expert shouted. Gotcha. Mo Xie's dark golden palm twisted, directly breaking the neck of that expert. This caused the hearts of the experts from the Dongshengshan Gate to tremble as they felt a chill run down their spines. Their gazes were all ice-cold as they stared at Mo Xie. Mo Xie glanced at them as he spoke. If the Dongshengshan Gate wants revenge, I won't obstruct you. However, the city of ancient emperors is different from the outside world. You guys have already joined my evil palace, and if you want to leave, you have to obtain my permission first. If you choose to defect to another power, I'll kill you all without mercy. For you. At this moment, the army of the Dongshengshan Gate had already arrived. They stared at Mo Xie as they coldly asked, "Who are you?" "Palace Lord of the Evil Palace, Missouri Xie." Mo Xie coldly replied, "Don't think that your Dongshengshan Gate has many experts. If you dare to infringe on my benefits, believe it or not, I will make sure that none of you from the Dongshengshan Gate will be able to leave this place alive. You are truly arrogant." The experts from the Dongshengshan Gate all had cold expressions on their faces. "You guys can try." The tribulation light radiating from Mo Xie towered up into the sky. Both sides stood in confrontation, but one of them spoke. "This time around, we are here on the orders of His Majesty to kill Qin Wenyin. As for other matters, we can talk about them after we kill Qin Wenyin." "That's fine as well. Killing Qin Wenyin is an order from His Majesty. Let's allow him to be arrogant for now." These experts from the Dongshengshan Gate were divided into 4 camps, surrounding Qin Wenyin and the members of the Qin sect. Qin Wentian's expression was extremely unsightly to behold. Today was truly one disaster after another. Not only did they have to face the attacks of the Violet Sect and Evil Palace, but now, the army of the Dongshengshan Gate had also appeared. This Dongxing Heaven Emperor actually sent an army of over 300 people to kill their way into the city of ancient emperors because he killed Ke Tianyi. How ruthless! The Dongxing Heaven Emperor had already steeled his heart to take his life. Only to see at this moment, one of the 4 great camps of the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect soared up into the air, attacking the 81 experts. Intense light radiated from them as astral energy filled the skies. These 81 experts formed a formation with the person in the lead as the heart of the formation. He stood at the highest point, and the might unleashed by the other experts all gushed towards him. In the air, a supreme might radiated from him. Formation. The eyes of everyone narrowed. They inclined their heads and stared at the sky only to see an area of tens of miles in radius. Boundless runic light cascaded down from the sky, transforming into strands of golden runic light that enveloped the entire space, locking down this entire space. The runic lights that descended contained an incomparably terrifying killing power. They were like numerous sword patterns that contained the might of destruction. Su Rushue turned her gaze over, after which her long whip abruptly lashed out, directly slamming into the light screen. Chi-chi. The terrifying destructive light directly tore apart her long whip. At that instant, the sword inscriptions that appeared seemed to be able to destroy everything, resembling layers of immortal ripples. In addition, the light screen was still expanding. The 81 experts joined forces to lock down this area, not allowing Qin Wenyan to escape. Seems like that old dog Eastern sage is truly ruthless in order to kill me. Qin Wenyan's countenance turned cold. In another camp, an expert in the lead spoke with cold arrogance. His Majesty has given the order. Qin Wenyan, Jun Mingchen and Zi Qingxian shall be killed without mercy. Princess Qing is not to be harmed. As for the other experts of the Qin sect, it's fine as long as we don't kill them. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor clearly had his own considerations when he gave the order. Qin Wenyan and the other two had rejected his offer to take him as their master, humiliating him in front of everyone. Hence, they were brought away by the Emperor Qianbian. The three of them had to be killed, and Qing couldn't be touched. As for the others, this was the city of ancient emperors. It was very hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be any descendants of immortal emperors. Hence, for the sake of caution, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor didn't kill them, but he could heavily injure them. If he killed so many immortal emperors in one go, even the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Qin Wenyan, we won't use any immortal rank treasures to kill you. We will abide by the rules of the city of ancient emperors. But if you take the initiative to use immortal rank treasures, all of us will use our immortal rank treasures to annihilate you. Another person spoke. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor had given a death order. This time around, they were here to kill Qin Wenyan. Hence, they had made ample preparations. Qin Wenyan wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. He would die for sure. Mo Xie stood at the side, his dark golden eyes flashing with interest. He didn't expect that even before he acted, these people from the Dongshengshan Gate already wanted to kill Qin Wenyan. Not only that, the might of this formation formed by the 81 experts was extremely terrifying. As expected, people from the same sect had an advantage. They could cultivate the Grand Formation Dao. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.